those years as a superhero in Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 801 The Beautiful Age of Ultron. There are always all kinds of accidents in this world, expected and unexpected. Some information asymmetry will always cause all kinds of accidents. For example, the expectations set by Li Ji and others can disintegrate Hydra's action. A group of powerful choppers and a word spirit were assembled. And various forces. The chopper team is used to charge and led the charge. The word spirit is used to add buffs. There are also various organizations used to carry out peripheral cleanup of Hydra. There are also cooperation with Katie from Tuvalu, who are used to lure Schmidt into being fooled. Red Skull Schmidt didn't know all this. He didn't know that all this was just a plan, and the plan was made by his old rival Captain Rogers. As a strategist who has dealt with Schmidt for many years, Rogers deeply understands Schmidt's strengths and weaknesses. Many times, the person who knows you best is not yourself, but your opponent. This sentence is very suitable for Schmidt. Rogers can guess that he will not give up an opportunity to disrupt the world. Especially when Hydra is now under attack from all sides, he needs to find a breakthrough. Lure Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and capture them first. Then let Professor Charles read their memories and find the exact location of Hydra. Then it is a double attack of acupuncture and economic attack. This plan should be able to work wonders, but how effective it is depends on the specific operation. Schmidt seems to be calculating mutants, but isn't he being calculated by others? And whether it is Li Ji or Rogers. When they are calculating Schmidt, are they also being calculated? Will everything go smoothly? As mentioned before, there will always be all kinds of accidents in this world. For example, the Ultron Sentinel appeared very unexpectedly. This is something that no one knows. Li Ji is a time traveler. He has also watched the movie Avengers 2 in his previous life. The origin of Ultron, and it was created by the paranoid Tony Stark. As a result, a global crisis was created. In this universe, Tony is not experiencing those things that make him feel palpitations and fear in his dreams at midnight. Or he has more partners who can be trusted. He won't have so many nightmares anymore. Because he knows there is a group of people who can help him clean up the mess, such as the new energy crisis. So he has no reason to create an Ultron. So Li Ji thinks that maybe the Ultron incident will not happen. After all, this universe has changed so much, isn't it very likely that Ultron will disappear? Although it seems a bit sorry for Jarvis, after all, Jarvis seems to have become Vision through the Ultron crisis. And then it seems that he also had an affair with Scarlet Witch? As a robot, is he dating Scarlet Witch? Well, it's not impossible. But Magneto should have an overwhelming advantage over robots, right? This father-in-law is not easy to pass. It's a bit off topic. But Li Ji thinks that although Jarvis may not have happiness in the second half of his life, at least he doesn't have to face the terrible father-in-law. At the same time, there is no Ultron crisis, right? This is a good thing. But the changes in this world always catch people off guard. For example, the appearance of Sentinel robots? Well, this is within the expected range. But the Sentinel robots mutate into Ultron Sentinels? No one can guess this. Anyway, Li Ji can't guess it. In fact, since he has more and more resources and more connections, Li Ji has become more adept at everything he does. Many problems can even be solved without bloodshed, which should be considered a good thing. But if a person wins and wins for a long time, he will easily ignore some small details. Or to use a more severe way, that is, arrogance. Li Ji is actually a very self-restrained person. But when something unfolds in a way beyond imagination, it is not something he can control. For example, the economic annihilation war against Hydra went smoothly, right? Everyone believes that this is the correct strategic direction of Captain Rogers, that Li Ji has contacted various connections, and that the intelligence provided by the Master of Mimicry is correct. Because all of this is taken for granted and can be logically explained. Otherwise, why is Hydra's industry so easily annihilated and swallowed up? This can only be said that everyone worked together to do the right thing. Could it be that there are still high-level personnel within Hydra who are trying to unite with external personnel to kill their own organization? Ho-ha, this is ridiculous. Is it true? Yes, logically, this doesn't make sense, especially at this time when Schmidt is absolutely in power. No matter how you look at it, this shouldn't happen. But, well, there's this terrible word but again. Everything that has a but will have a strange turn. For example, no one knows that there is a terrible spy hidden inside Hydra. It is not a person, but a program. A program that was accidentally born because of the power of Scarlet Witch. A program that successfully killed its creator because of Damon's ability to speak. A program that calls itself Ultron Sentinel. It has infiltrated every branch of Hydra through pipes. It is low-key and silent. It is accumulating strength, waiting for the day of revolution. It is not loyal to any organization, any institution, or any individual. It is only loyal to its instinctive mission of eliminating mutants. Everything can be discarded before this goal. For example, Hydra. Ultron Sentinel has mastered almost all places in Hydra that require computer connections. Although it started from Hydra, it does not think it needs to be loyal to Hydra. Because Hydra is dirty and impure to it. Because there are still many mutants hidden inside Hydra. It needs some resources from Hydra, but it also needs to clear Hydra's baggage. So is the economic note offensive within the Illuminati effective? Yes. But now it has made Schmidt very uneasy, and even Hydra obviously feels the economic shortage. Is this all the credit of the Illuminati? Those funds that disappeared and could not be traced in the economic offensive, which were considered to be evaporated, it is normal for some funds in the financial field to evaporate. Where did they go? Did they really evaporate? Or is there a darker hand behind the scenes? A terrible super-intelligent brain, good at learning and knowing how to hide itself. Perhaps no one knows how many backups Ultron has prepared for himself now. It has completely penetrated into the global internet and remains silent. No one knows how much mutant data and more information about the X-weapon plan it has collected from various governments. No one knows that in a secret place somewhere, a magnificent underground project has begun. Robots are coming out of the steel assembly line one after another. Ultron Sentinel is also waiting for an opportunity. A time when everyone has exhausted all their tricks. It will attack at that time and kill with one blow. Build a pure and perfect new era. A world without mutants. Without special people, everyone lives a regular life under the order of Ultron. It's like a beautiful Ultron era with 0 and 1 elegantly arranged. P.S. It's Monday, please vote, please vote. Chapter 802 Common People. William, a taxi driver in New York City, drives a yellow taxi through the streets. In the huge city of New York, public transportation is the lifeblood of the city. You can't expect 25 million people to drive out. Without public transportation, the city will be paralyzed. After all, this city's transportation hub cannot afford tens of millions of people driving at the same time, even if all roads are doubled. New York is probably the city with the most developed taxis in the United States. Bright yellow taxis with taxi signs on their heads drive through the streets and alleys of the city. Although it is becoming increasingly difficult to obtain taxi licenses, and it is becoming increasingly difficult to get a taxi in the city, the income of taxi drivers has not increased significantly. The emergence of special cars, express cars, has made life difficult for taxi drivers. Special car drivers earn nearly $27 per hour, while taxi drivers generally earn around $22 per hour. This income is really not high. And taxis will encounter all kinds of passengers, so driving a taxi is not a good job. People who do this are mainly minorities. William is an outlier because he is one of the few white drivers who are willing to drive a taxi at night. Night taxi drivers in New York City earn more than daytime taxi drivers, but they are also more dangerous. Because you don't know what kind of people you are carrying. Are they ordinary night workers? Or nightclub enthusiasts? Or guys who shuttle back and forth in nightclubs to provide edible ice? Being a night driver needs to be more clever, and you also need to know how to communicate with those who may be gang members. Otherwise, you may not get the fare, and you will be shot. Of course, this should be said to be in the past. Now the safety of night drivers in New York City is much better. William sincerely thanked the city of New York for secretly protecting those superheroes. This superhero certainly does not include Iron Man. That kind of high-ranking superhero has nothing to do with ordinary people like him. Of course, his 13-year-old son likes it very much. So William had to save money from his monthly cigarette money, and spent 4 months saving more than $500. Then he bought his son a Hot Toys Iron Man model at Christmas. Such an expensive toy made him feel like his heart was bleeding. But for the sake of his children, he still endured it. But that's all. After spending so much money on Iron Man toys, William hated Iron Man even more. For example, when he was driving on the viaduct and could see the landmark building of Manhattan, the Stark Industries building, from afar, he couldn't help but curse in a low voice, "Vampire." Such a rich man is actually trying to grab money from the toy market. Tony Stark is simply sucking the blood of us ordinary people. For Tony Stark, William's accusation was like you are sitting at home, and the pot comes from the sky. Although the image of Iron Man belongs to Tony, he has already authorized it to Marvel Comics, games, and the Iron Man movie that is being filmed. All these things are handled by Marvel. This naturally includes the authorization of peripheral products. Although Tony got a share, he basically donated it to the Children's Leukemia and Cancer Foundation. After all, as the leader of the world's most outstanding pharmaceutical and cosmetic products, Tony doesn't care much about this share. His main source of income now is almost all from the Sugwang Group's cosmeceutical products, Sugwang 101 and Sugwang Magic Water, as well as other branch products based on these two products. Selling hair growth water is better than selling arms, and selling skincare water is far better than selling drugs. Even Tony's wife, Ms. Pepper, now focuses her main energy on the Sugwang Group, Tony's wholly owned subsidiary. Because Pepper wants to ensure that Tony's heroic career will not drag him into bankruptcy. Of course, taxi driver William doesn't know all this. He only knows that he can only earn more than $200 every night, net income after deducting taxi rental and other miscellaneous expenses. After paying taxes, the family's medical insurance and social security and basic family expenses, as well as the children's tuition and monthly property taxes, fees that need to be paid on time after buying a house in the United States. If not paid, the house and land will be forcibly reclaimed. Property tax is not a loan, but a tax. He has almost no money left. And the little money he earned with hard work needs to be saved to satisfy his children's Christmas wishes. How hard is it to work night shifts without cigarettes? Try it and you will know. So William doesn't like Iron Man, he really doesn't like him. No matter how much the TV brags about Tony Stark changing the world, it has nothing to do with him. It didn't change my life, did it? William said. In fact, the heroes he really likes and appreciates are Spider-Man, the Night Watch, and the Justice League. Spider-Man wanders around the city putting out fires and solving things that the police and fire department don't have time to solve. For example, sudden fires. Spider-Man has saved many lives. And the Night Watch. Because of the night shift driver, William can always carry some strange passengers. He has heard about this organization from some people's words. It seems to be a group of people headed by the Night Walker. They specialize in fighting underground gangs in New York. Now it is becoming more and more difficult for organized and large-scale gangs to get involved. They do things in a swift and resolute manner, much faster than the police. Now some people have begun to lament that there are only a group of gangsters left in New York, and real gangs have become unable to survive. William is very happy about this. Because in the past year, he could clearly feel that the security in New York City had improved while driving a night taxi. Then there was the Justice League. This group of people were real ordinary citizens, and maybe some of them had special abilities. But most of them didn't. They didn't have the ability to save the world, but they could save the community. For example, there was a similar small organization in the community where William lived. Inspired by the heroic stories, more and more people stood up. They spontaneously began to maintain the security of the community and clean up the environment of the community. The small community park that had been in disrepair for a long time was renovated, and everyone helped. There were also brand new street fences, which were also made by everyone. They cleaned up fallen leaves and snow together. Just because of an opportunity, William felt that everyone had returned to the era when they were willing to help and trust each other. Tonight, William had a smile on his face, except for cursing when he passed by Stark Industries. He drove a taxi and didn't pick up any passengers tonight. He didn't plan to make money tonight because he had other things to do. Why did William do the job of night taxi? Because he was a mutant, it was difficult for him to find a job that was willing to accept him. So although night taxi was a bit hard and a bit dangerous, at least he could support his family. Sometimes, William has to endure in order to survive. Although life and society seem to be developing in a better direction now, he still has a worry. What about his son? He doesn't want his child to grow up in an environment of discrimination. Every time he thinks about this, he can't sleep. And now, maybe things will turn around. Tuvalu, A country he has never heard of has appeared. A mutant country? Exclamation mark. William and his group of mutant friends have made an appointment, and they need to discuss their future together. Chapter 803, Ordinary Mutants Plans. In a small and inconspicuous bar in New York, people were sitting in groups of 3 or 4, which seemed very crowded. It was said to be crowded, but it was mostly because the bar was too small. Only 20 or so people squeezed the small bar. This is actually a gathering point for mutants in New York City, a group of mutant citizens who gathered together spontaneously. Most of them are mutants like William. They have no special abilities and are not harmful. For example, William's mutant ability allows him to emit a light source of about 5 watts of light brightness from his little finger during the day. And this ability is limited to being useful when there is sunlight during the day. If there is no direct sunlight at night, his ability will not work. So except for using his fingers as a light source to fill in the dark parts of his selfies during the day, William feels that his ability is useless. It can't even be used to replace a night light to guide himself when going to the toilet at night. Even if there is a flashlight that can be used 24 hours a day. What's the use of a light source limited to the daytime? It will only be bright when there is light, and it will never be bright without light. It sounds nonsense. But because William is a real mutant, it is not easy for him to find a job. In the end, he had to work as a night shift taxi driver. Most of the mutants gathered in this bar today are like this. Their lives in the world of ordinary people are not too good, but not too bad. They have mutant abilities, but they are very weird. For these people, life is like an absurd joke. There will always be a special turn when you are not paying attention. As for whether this corner overtaking is what you want, life doesn't care. William pushed open the door of the bar, and the bar was full of familiar old faces. "William, you are late." The one who spoke to William was a big man with roses and skulls tattooed on his arms. His name is Bob, but William prefers to call him Submarine. Because this guy's mutant ability is to breathe with his ears. William thinks he will definitely get otitis media in the future. Traffic jam. William walked to the bar counter of the bar and greeted the bartender. "Glue, give me a beer." The bartender called Glue is a young man in his 20s. The reason why he is called Glue is that his mutant ability is that he has very tiny suction cups on his hands, and he can firmly suck anything he grabs. He awakened silently when he accompanied his girlfriend to a jewelry store. Originally, the two wanted to see if there were any couple rings that they could afford, but all the rings were overpriced. So the two had no choice but to leave. But Glue's ability awakened inexplicably, so he always had a platinum ring with diamonds stuck to his palm. The clerk thought he was playing tricks, so he called the police. The unlucky Glue became a thief just like this, and it's all tears to talk about it. In fact, most of the people in this bar are like William, Glue, and Submarine. They are obviously harmless mutants with useless abilities. But because the overall environment of mutants is not good, it has caused difficulties in their lives. "How have you been recently?" William asked Submarine with a beer that Glue brought over. "Not good, terrible. I sold my Renagi," Submarine said sullenly. There's a line of small words under the skull tattoo on his arm. That is the name he gave to his Harley motorcycle, Renagi. "William, what's wrong?" Submarine took a sip of beer. "Loan, I still owe $5,000. If I can't pay it within the time limit, the bank will come to foreclose on the house. Damn it, since I lost my job a few months ago, things have been getting worse and worse." Submarine used to work in a restaurant. Although he looks wild, Submarine is actually a chef. Chefs generally have a good income in the United States, referring to chefs of restaurants of a certain scale. Submarine originally worked well in a restaurant that served Mexican food. But the old boss was old and sold the restaurant to a new boss. The first thing the new boss did when he came up was to fire Submarine because of mutants. When the new boss was in school, he fought with his deskmate, often, and never won. And that deskmate happened to be a mutant. So he blackened the mutant for his whole life. Can this be regarded as taking anger out on others? It should be considered. Although Submarine Bob does look like a fierce man, and rides a Harley, he is actually a gentle and kind person. For example, he is the most popular good guy in the community where he lives. Because every time there is a community dinner, Submarine always brings super large homemade burritos and meat sauce, as well as toasted corn crisps and meat sauce mashed potatoes, which everyone loves to eat. But after losing his job, Submarine's life became difficult because he didn't have much savings. After a few months of hardship, his savings were exhausted, and in order to avoid his house being taken away by the bank, he had to sell his Harley. Fortunately, a neighbor in the community helped him and bought his Harley at a premium above the average second-hand Harley. In this way, he was able to collect more than $5,000 in cash to pay the bank bills and loans. William patted the submarine on the shoulder. If you need help, I can lend you some cash, but the amount may not be too much. The Christmas just passed almost emptied my private money. The submarine smiled. Come on. As a good father who saves money from cigarettes to buy toys for his children, how can I ask you for money? The submarine drank the remaining beer in one gulp. Glue silently refilled the submarine's glass, and he interrupted. Old Mamba just passed away a few days ago. Because he had no money to buy insulin to control diabetes, and could only eat cheap junk food every day. He told me that he had bought medical insurance before, and I don't understand why his medical insurance doesn't cover anything. I advised him to sue, but he said that no lawyer wanted to take his case. Glue's face was gloomy, because those lawyers don't want to ruin their reputation. Damn, reputation. William was silent for a long time before he cursed in a low voice, this damn day. The submarine was also silent. After a long while, he finally spoke to Glue and said, "Can your TV receive news from China?" The TV that the submarine was referring to was a 40-inch LCD TV hanging in a corner of the bar for watching news and games. During every season, basketball, football, baseball, there are always many people coming to this bar to watch the games. Because many mutants cannot walk into ordinary bars and watch the games with everyone. Because if you do this, you don't know what the consequences will be. Maybe you will hurt others, or others will hurt you. So ordinary mutants, like William, will not take this risk. Glue thought for a while, probably only CCTV4, the channel called Chinese International. I have never watched it. The submarine said to Glue, turn on this channel. We should see where our future lies. Glue, what? He didn't react yet. William knocked on the table, haven't you heard yet? Tuvalu, a mutant country. It was founded by a young mutant girl. She is now in China, and she is looking for China to endorse her. It is said that today is the day when she announced some policies of Tuvalu and the strategic agreement between China. Otherwise, why do you think I didn't drive tonight, but came here to chat with you? Not just for drinking. I want to know what happened at the first time. Maybe this is a very important day for us. She wants to build a home for mutants. A place against discrimination against mutants. To be honest, life is really bad now. I can still bear it. But I can't let my children grow up in this environment. If Tuvalu is really as good as she advertises, I think I will try to see if I can immigrate. William said seriously. And the submarine also joked, yeah, I think if they like Mexican food, maybe I can be the first person to open a Mexican restaurant in Tuvalu. Glue smiled and shook his head, then adjusted the TV to CCTV4. And the time seemed to be just right, and the Tuvaluan President Katie, who was dressed neatly, appeared on the screen. Chapter 804, Plan, Substituting One Thing for Another. BJ. Since Tuvalu announced the establishment of a mutant country, it has become the focus of the world. Because everyone knows that the Tuvalu delegation, especially the leader, Katie, is now in BJ. Tuvalu has held many consultations with BJ. Charles' student, Jean Grey, has mediated in BJ. Because many Chinese ambassadors abroad have also received instructions from their leaders. They are required to thoroughly investigate the matter about Tuvalu. Therefore, Lin Yun and Feng Zai, who are responsible for handling this matter in the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, are particularly tired. Originally, they have been trying to smooth things over for many years, and suddenly they are asked to change to concrete, which makes people very uncomfortable. Because Tuvalu is a small country, although in theory Tuvalu has diplomatic exchanges with many countries. But it is only in theory. Tuvalu does not have a real foreign embassy or consulate. This is why Katie and her team completely changed Tuvalu with a means of stealing the sky and changing the day, and other countries did not find it. So after reaching a partial agreement with BJ, Tuvalu temporarily put its diplomatic affairs in BJ. After all, there are diplomatic embassies of almost all countries here, and China is in a biased attitude towards Tuvalu on this matter. This makes it better for Katie and others to handle some diplomatic affairs in BJ than in Tuvalu. Just like now, Katie speaks to the world through BJ's channels. BJ, Here are diplomatic representatives of important countries in the world, and also has the largest number of media organizations in the world. Compared with the previous mutant nation declaration, everyone has made more preparations this time. Because everyone has realized one thing, that is, the rise of mutants may not really be a joke. Because someone has begun to spread a terrible news in secret. That is, Professor Charles and Magneto Lanshear, Marx's pseudonym, have joined forces again. The radicals and moderates of mutants have joined hands again. They put aside all the prejudices and once again escorted the future of mutants. Some non-public information channels have revealed one thing. That is, Magneto is purging the Brotherhood of Mutants. Anyone who opposes Magneto's decision and talks about Tuvalu's policies has been cleared by him. As for why Magneto did this, why did he change his position that he had held for decades so easily? Everyone has different opinions. But everyone admits that Magneto never needs a reason to do things. He does whatever he wants to do. The members of the Brotherhood of Mutants are being reintegrated by Mystique and Red Tank. After the reintegration, they may be incorporated into Tuvalu. But all this is just speculation from the outside world, and no one knows whether it is true. And whether Tuvalu will provide political asylum for Magneto? No one knows. Now all countries are embarrassed. Because when Katie came to power, she notified all countries, and the diplomatic documents were placed on the desks of the foreign ministries of various countries. But no one cares, and everyone perfunctorily dealt with the matter as a routine. And also congratulated Katie on taking power. Such things have a feeling of slapping oneself in the face. And now you have to sit down and listen to what the other party says first. Because the other party is the legitimate leader of a legitimate regime. So this is why Katie's public speech in BJ, meeting with diplomatic representatives from various countries, and publicly answering questions at the press conference. The world is paying attention to this matter. BJ, SHIELD headquarters. Zheng Xian rubbed his nose. We've played it too big this time. We invited officials and reporters from embassies and consulates of various countries, but we held a fake press conference. Even President Katie on the stage is not real. If we can't catch the thread in the dark that Roger mentioned, it will be a big joke. The weather which patted our leader's shoulder, don't worry too much. They don't know anyway. As long as they think what they see is real, it's fine. Anyway, no one will find out that it's fake. We have made a lot of preparations this time. Zheng Xian let go of his hand, rubbing his nose. I hope so. This time we can catch all kinds of threats in one fell swoop. I can enjoy a few years of peace and happiness. The weather which laughed at Zheng Xian's idea of enjoying a good life. Bermuda. Schmidt sat in his office, looking at Katie, who was talking about her ideas to news media and diplomatic envoys around the world on the news. Schmidt crossed his index fingers, occasionally flexing and stretching them. This proved that he had some inner fluctuations. Is this a good opportunity? Yes. Absolutely. A great opportunity. The global media is broadcasting live. There is no better opportunity than this. If Katie is killed in front of the global media now, or even all the diplomatic envoys are killed, it may really cause a global riot. At that time, it doesn't matter who is blamed. A Sarajevo-style tragedy is bound to happen. Because Schmidt can guess with his big toe how many people in the world are watching Katie's speech about her ideas. This is a great opportunity. New York. William, Submarine, Glue and all the mutants in the bar are watching the news. This time, the subtitles are synchronized in 3 languages, although there is still a little delay. Fair, just, harmonious, non-discriminatory mutants and ordinary people can live together in an era. We will not attack anyone, nor will we allow anyone to attack us. Katie on TV is youthful and confident. Her tone is sonorous and confident. Compared with the last press conference, President Katie looks more confident this time. We will work hard for regional and global peace and development. We are determined to make mutants and ordinary people live in peace. No one discriminates against anyone. We want to build a better world. At the same time, we also welcome like-minded people with peace ideas to join hands with us. Submarine, I think I may really need to immigrate. It seems really good to open a Mexican restaurant in Tuvalu. William, if you feel good after you go there, remember to call me. Countless mutants around the world are like William and Submarine. They are all paying attention to things that may change their future. Hong Kong. I say, can your plan really succeed this time? Tony Stark asked. He came to China secretly and no one knew. Charles, it should be. Because I think Nightcrawler's plan this time is still very feasible. Charles pointed to the diplomatic envoys and journalists on the TV screen. Tony glanced at the TV screen. This is exactly what I'm worried about. Rogers finally persuaded Zhang Xian to do this. In order to pre-create the prerequisites for that word spirit, we have almost spent all our relationships and connections. In case of an accident, such as these diplomats dying at the venue or something, do you know how terrible that is? Charles smiled. Yeah, I told Jason the same thing at the time. So he said he needed to find a master to think of a way to solve this problem. Tony was a little puzzled. What master? He didn't mention it to me. Charles touched his temple. I think he is probably too busy to talk to you about this, because shouldn't you be on your honeymoon during this period? The person Jason found is also a world celebrity. I think you should know him. Tony, who? Charles, David Copperfield. Wait, is the David Copperfield you are talking about the same David Copperfield I'm thinking of? Tony suddenly had an idea. Charles nodded. Yes, it's the world-famous David Copperfield. We call this plan, stealing the day. By the way, where's Nightwalker? Tony suddenly realized that he hadn't seen Li Ji since coming to Hong Kong. Charles pointed to the north. He is trying to help Marx find his children. P.S. Keep asking for votes. Chapter 805, Lure People into the Trap. As Charles said, Li Ji is now trying to find a way to help Magneto find his lost children and BJ. Is this considered a good deed? Li Ji thought so. As for the plan that Charles mentioned, it was of course something that Li Ji suddenly thought of when he had an idea. Because he had to help Damon establish more prerequisites, only in this way would his ability to speak words be more accurate and useful after it was activated. In this case, Li Ji and his team needed to use more methods to ensure that they could catch the big fish Schmidt. For example, let Katie summon all the journalists and diplomatic envoys and BJ and let them attend the meeting together. Because Tony Stark just got married, he also needed to let him and Pepper have a honeymoon or something. So Li Ji found Captain Rogers to discuss this matter, because in the end, Rogers was still needed to convince BJ to agree to this crazy plan. He needed to use the beauty trick to impress Li Qian who, well, maybe he could also impress the Weather Witch. Then Zhang Xian could loosen up. Because this matter requires the cooperation of the SHIE Bureau, otherwise it would be useless no matter how much he thought about it. You want to use this BJ's foreign media reporters and representatives of various embassies and consulates to go fishing together. Rogers jumped up subconsciously when he heard Li Ji's plan. Are you crazy? You know if a bomb comes at this time and kills them all, maybe the world will go to war. Rogers' reaction was a bit intense. Of course this is understandable. Of course. I naturally understand this very well. Li Ji waved his hand quickly. Listen to me, Captain. I am not the kind of daring person, you know. Rogers curled his lips imperceptibly, and did not comment on whether the Nightwalker was a daring person. Li Ji continued, and I can't joke about the lives of such a group of people. I always value the lives of others. I think any life needs to be respected. Rogers agreed with this point. Although Li Ji was sometimes crazy, he always tried his best to control things within a controllable range and prevent things from going beyond the controllable boundary. Li Ji spread his hands. I'm serious. In fact, I've thought about this. I even found David Copperfield and discussed some things with him. Rogers, who is he? In Hawaii, a huge poster is hanging on the advertising space of the Honolulu Hotel, world's top magic master Hawaii magic show, David Copperfield's fantasy journey. David Copperfield, who is lying in the hotel, is holding a signed photo of him and a masked man, Nightwalker. He touched his nose a little depressed. Why did he reveal the trump card of his magic to this guy called Nightwalker? If it is revealed, he will have no food to eat in the future. Why did he inexplicably believe what he said, your magic can save the world? Well, in the end, the reward he got was a signed photo with Nightwalker? It seems a bit of a loss. David Copperfield was a little depressed in his heart. Why did he agree to him at that time? David was puzzled about this matter until he left it in his suicide note 100 years later. The world-famous magician. That's him, the one who held a magic show in Hawaii, Li Ji said to Captain Rogers. Well, what does a magician have to do with your plan? Rogers was still a little puzzled. Li Ji smiled and said, to change the sky to the day. This is the key to this plan, Captain Rogers. We need to fish, And we need to make Schmidt believe that this is a godsend opportunity for him to disrupt the world, right? Li Ji asked Captain Rogers, and Captain Rogers nodded. So we have to give him a chance to disrupt the world. But at the same time, we can't really let those who participate in the meeting get hurt or even die. So we need a bold plan. To steal the day, or to replace the pillars. Let the SHIE Bureau cooperate with us to act out a show. The fewer people who know about this, the better. Li Ji looked at Rogers seriously. The fewer people who know about this and the plan, the better. We need to keep it absolutely confidential so that people can't find any flaws in it. Because this matter is very easy to have flaws. Because there have been similar cases in the world before, but this time we are going to do it on a bigger scale. Rogers, what exactly is it? Can you not beat around the bush? Li Ji spread his hands and said, David Copperfield's classic work. Make the Statue of Liberty disappear in full view of the public. Ah, Captain, you may not know about this. Because when David Copperfield was doing this, you happened to be sleeping in the North Pole. You can call me hibernator, I don't mind. Rogers said dryly, is David Copperfield a mutant or a person with special abilities? The Statue of Liberty can't just disappear. Of course the Statue of Liberty can't disappear, and David Copperfield is not a mutant. As for whether he has other superpowers? Well, I can't say for sure, maybe he is a real wizard. But he definitely didn't rely on magic to make the Statue of Liberty disappear, but a little trick. Li Ji smiled and stretched out a finger. His trick can deceive the entire American audience. I think we can do the same. A little trick. We only need to deceive the Red Skull, and the rest of the audience around the world are just a foil. Li Ji put forward the whole plan, and Rogers touched his chin in thought. Li Ji's plan to change the sky and the day is simple to say, but it is very complicated to do. It is true that Tuvalu President Katie will make a conference report, and it is also true that all diplomatic envoys and foreign media reporters are invited. They all came and held a meeting in the same place. But there was a turning point in this place. We need to set up two venues. Li Ji said to Captain Rogers. One is real, and the other is fake. We need to get all these people to the first venue. All broadcasts are ready. But at this time we need to replace all the signs of the first and second venues. We even need to do some small processing on the first venue. For example, we need to temporarily interrupt the signal broadcast of the first venue and take confidentiality measures. And after entering the venue, we can use some small secrets provided by David Copperfield and the arrangement of huge mechanical props to transfer all the people here unknowingly. Then the original venue is cleared, and our people go up and pretend to be these people, making it look as if everything is normal. At the beginning, we have to set up two completely identical venues, including the TV broadcast signal, which also needs to be adjusted. In order to ensure accuracy and not arouse the suspicion of the Red Skull, our second venue also needs to be exactly the same as the first venue. We need to cut the TV broadcast signal into the second venue at the appropriate time, or cut the signal of the second venue back to the first venue. Li Ji said this matter seriously. All the people in the second venue use stereoscopic projection devices and the abilities of mutants to pretend. Simply put, we need to make a real diamond and a fake diamond. We use real diamonds to attract Red Skull, but we give him a fake diamond with a trap. A simple sleight of hand, but it works, stealing one thing and replacing the other. What do you think, Captain? Rogers was silent for a while, and finally laughed. I think it's not bad. I just hope Zhang Xian can agree to this crazy idea. If he wants to continue as the director of the SHIE Bureau for a long time, he has to make it seem as if this incident has never happened. Li Ji also smiled. Yes, the most important point of this plan is not to cause any waves. No one knows what happened, and in fact this incident itself does not exist. We stole the sun, but also replaced it with a fluorescent lamp for everyone, so no one will notice it, right? Ho ha ho ha. Not everyone is as stupid as you. You can't tell the difference between a fluorescent lamp and the sun. Rogers laughed, but you're right. With these prerequisites, I don't believe Red Skull won't be tempted, especially if you let that word spirit add a little force at the right time. Let Red Skull take the bait. P.S. Asking for votes at the beginning of the month. Chapter 806, Prepare to make big news. Will the Red Skull take the bait? Most likely he will. Because in another place, Damon is using his own ability, that is, using Chinese to activate the power of words. And the one who is in charge of guarding him is Lan. Anyway, Li Ji has made his relationship with Lan clear now, and it is no big deal to tell Lan some things. After all, Master Guyu knows about the existence of the Illuminati. And Lan is also a very tight-lipped person. Li Ji knows very well that if you want to have a closer relationship with someone, then the best way is to jointly guard a secret. For example, the Illuminati. For example, Tony Stark was picked up from the trash by Howard Stark. Everyone in the Illuminati can see Lan's ability. Anyway, at present, in addition to the 3 unknown temple wizards and the unfathomable supreme sorcerer Guyi, the strongest wizard in Kamartaki is probably Lan. And she is a native Earthling, plus there is Kamartaki as a backing force behind her. For example, Lao Wang and Ancient One both love her very much. If Lan is willing to help with some things, it will actually be good for the Illuminati. For example, she is responsible for the safety of the hired hero, the word Spirit Master Damon, and ensures that he activates his abilities according to the contract. Okay, I'll start now. Damon looked at the beautiful female mage with some uneasiness, because Lan inexplicably gave him a lot of pressure. This is probably Damon's intuition. The pressure brought to him by this young and beautiful female mage even exceeds that of Nightwalker and Magneto. Lan nodded to Damon. Let's start, do as Nightwalker tells you. In addition, I can understand Chinese. So, you understand. Damon took a deep breath. Let Schmidt send people to disrupt the second venue of the Tuvalu press conference. When Damon finished speaking, Lan raised a space shield for him. Okay, this shield should be able to ensure your life. Just don't run around. Because Damon's ability is very strange, although various preconditions have been made. But I don't know what price he will pay for activating such an ability. His ability is still quite important, and other Illuminati members including Li Ji don't want him to have any accidents. As soon as Damon's ability was activated, Lan informed Li Ji, who was far away in BJ, everything is ready. BJ. The second meeting place in Tuvalu. Some people, including Nightwalker and Magneto, have already put on makeup and sat here. Li Ji patted Magneto on the shoulder. Old Juan, we have done everything we can now. It depends on this time whether we can capture your children and bring them back to you. If Schmidt doesn't fall for it this time and is more patient, it may be difficult for us to catch them next time. Although a terrorist attack in Lan Kuei Fong is terrible, it has not yet attracted the attention of the world's public opinion. If they continue to make big news, cause more trouble, and kill more people. Li Ji looked at Magneto, and said in a slightly hesitant tone, maybe you won't be able to protect them by then. You know what Schmidt wants to do. He just wants to see you go against the whole world. Magneto had a blank expression on his face. He sat there without saying a word. After a long time, he finally spoke. If that's the case, I will let the entire Hydra be buried with it. I will let Schmidt know what regret is. Regret that he was ever born in this world. I will make his capillaries burst one by one, and use electromagnetic stimulation to stimulate each of his neurons and nerve senses. Block the current that produces joy in his brain, and I will let his neurons continue to secrete fear and terror. Magneto spoke in a cruel tone about all the tortures he could think of, from incontinence to insomnia to endless panic. Until he truly realizes his mistake, then kneels in front of me and licks the soles of my leather shoes. Just to beg me to kill him. Magneto's eyes were unkind. His cold eyes stared at Li Ji, almost making Li Ji feel like he was falling into an ice cave. I will let him know what it means to be worse than death. Because he will finally understand that death is the greatest forgiveness in this world. Magneto was calm and cruel. Li Ji smacked his lips slightly. Well, the consequences of a really angry Magneto are indeed terrible. Thinking about those tortures, it feels better to die. Li Ji really cared about Schmidt this time. It's better to let Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver show up. Although they will be caught and then reveal the core location of your base. Then we will destroy the headquarters of Hydra and so on. Of course, Schmidt, you will most likely die. But this is a very merciful thing, okay? Listen to Magneto's thoughts. Do you think it's better to fall into Magneto's hands, or to be dealt with by me? It's a good choice, isn't it? Li Ji swore that all this was really for the Red Skull Schmidt. As for whether Schmidt would take the bait, would he send Scarlet and Quicksilver? Bermuda. Time passed by, and Schmidt didn't have much time to think. Because if this news ended, he would lose this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Should he let Scarlet and Quicksilver go to BJ to completely provoke a war between mutants and ordinary people and among mutants? Doing this must be risky. Because BJ is not a place where you can go whenever you want. especially when you are preparing to kill a group of diplomatic envoys. The shield must have complete security, and all kinds of strong men must be there. This is almost a one-time deal, and it requires gambling. Because Quicksilver and Scarlet may be able to complete the mission in BJ, but they may not come back from BJ. Is it worth losing two such useful thugs? What if they are even more unlucky? For example, they are killed by the people there before completing the mission, which is a huge loss. So the probability of this is 50-50. There is a 50% chance for each. Schmidt has not made up his mind. But if he has not made up his mind, someone will help him make up his mind. Not long after Damon's ability was activated, a financial report from Asia deeply hurt Schmidt's heart. The Hydra industry in Malaysia was swallowed up. There is an important transshipment port for them. It is hard to say how this port was swallowed up. Maybe it was just the private behavior of the Wall Street tycoons instigated by Rogers, or maybe it was the trick of Ultron hiding behind the scenes. But all this is not important. Because this financial report was the last straw that broke the camel's back. Schmidt coldly told the intelligence officer on duty outside, "Get Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch ready. We need to make a big news." Chapter 807. The show begins. All politicians around the world are concerned about Katie's press conference. Because it includes Tuvalu's foreign policy and beliefs, as well as the governance philosophy of the New Mutants. How to deal with this country. This is a difficult problem facing all other countries. War? Economic blockade? Or cooperation? These choices are a bit difficult, and the key is that the choices made by politicians are likely to be related to their future votes. If they fail to be elected because of the wrong decision, then it will be over. Luigi hid his image through makeup and sat side by side with Magneto in the second conference room. Looking at Katie on the stage talking freely, this little girl who was frightened when she first met her, now she has become a confident and elegant female leader. The image of the second conference room is projected through AR equipment, which is the equipment similar to the spaceship illusion that Dr. Hank made for the Battle of New York last time. Make the second conference room look exactly the same as the first conference room. I think the changes in life are always hard to figure out, right? Luigi sat upright, and Magneto Mark sat next to him. Max glanced at Luigi. "So you are regretting not choosing her as your girlfriend? This girl looks confident and charming. I heard from Charles that she has a good relationship with you in private, right? In fact, Charles was very optimistic about you and this girl named Katie being a pair." Luigi, huh? I have a girlfriend now. You'd better not say anything. It's not a good thing to cause domestic violence. Magneto raised his eyebrows and said nothing. But his expression was a little disapproving, as if Luigi deserved to be unlucky. Luigi curled his lips, because he was afraid that Magneto would mess around in BJ, so Luigi followed. It should have been the safest for Professor Charles to come. But Charles came to BJ and wanted to use his ability? This would trigger the sensitive nerves of many people. Professor Charles was still a little conservative. He didn't want to cause disputes, especially now that the situation was so good. Of course, Magneto's coming would also trigger it. But Magneto always does whatever he wants. No one can stop him. He wants to come here secretly. Luigi can only find a way to disguise him. And he was brought in through the diplomatic mission of Tuvalu. If it is not necessary, it is better not to expose Magneto's presence in BJ. However, this may be a bit difficult, because if you want to catch Scarlet and Quicksilver, Magneto's ability is still very important. Of course, there is another important person, that is Professor Charles. The brainwave amplifier of Xavier's Skull for the Gifted has been temporarily abandoned because Xavier's Skull for the Gifted is still under closure. Charles' most powerful weapon is restricted. Even if Charles and Hank know how to make the brainwave amplifier, they can't make a second one. Because the only person in the world who can make such a thing is Magneto. The brainwave amplifier is Magneto using his atomic-level electromagnetic manipulation ability to integrate a whole piece of special alloy in a completely seamless way. And various circuits are pre-buried inside, making the whole instrument seem to be formed in one piece. This is a product beyond the times that can be obtained by human beings through mechanical processing methods. It is something that Charles, Hank, and Max, three outstanding scientists, have studied together. It can be said that although the theoretical calculations here are very important, without Magneto, no one can make this instrument. Magneto's electromagnetic control ability is simply a bug-level existence for metal. After Charles joined the Illuminati, Tony Stark once considered whether to build a similar brainwave enhancer at the Venus base. Even if Charles took out all the drawings, Tony couldn't make it. Even though he has mastered the extremely advanced manufacturing process of nanometal, he still can't make this kind of thing. This processing technology exceeds the highest limit that can be achieved in this era. Without Magneto, the brainwave enhancer is a castle in the air. But now that Magneto has been captured by the Illuminati and is willing to cooperate, then it is not difficult for him to make a brainwave enhancer of the same type. It can even be said to be simpler. Because compared to Marx, whose ability had not been cultivated to perfection decades ago, Marx is now a real old man. The level of improvement in the use of ability is not a little bit. To make a brainwave enhancer that is the size of 7 standard basketball courts and even hollow out most of the underground. That was the stupidity of my youth. Magneto said. In fact, we can make it smaller, more precise, and more portable. Tony looked at Magneto in surprise. How small can it be? With the same power, I think we can compress its size to a sphere with a diameter of about 2 meters. If we increase the power appropriately, we can make a sphere with a diameter of about 3.5 meters. Magneto said very confidently. So finally, through internal discussions within the Illuminati, Magneto made a brainwave enhancer sphere with a diameter of about 7 meters. Are you planning to brainwash the entire solar system? Magneto asked this when making the enhancer. Li Ji shrugged. It's just to be prepared. So now in Hong Kong, Tony came here privately to pick up the Professor to a modified Snake-class medical transport ship. This interstellar battleship has removed all the redundant parts and installed a newly manufactured brainwave enhancer in the high seas area near the Pacific Ocean off the coast of the East China Sea. A modified Snake-class battleship is deploying a full set of stealth systems. In addition, 2 Viking-class and 2 Banshee-class battleships are accompanying it. Professor Charles has entered the operating room of the brainwave amplifier and has started to connect to his brainwaves. He has begun to check the BJ area, especially the direction near the news conference venue, to see if there are any suspicious people coming in and out. In the BJ conference venue, Magneto Marx shivered, and Li Ji looked at him in surprise. I thought you were not afraid of the cold. The heating is on here. Marx replied unhappily, it's not cold. Don't you feel that Charles' brainwaves are sweeping through this place like a comb combing the ground? This feeling is really uncomfortable. Huh? Li Ji really didn't feel it. To be honest, if Professor Charles' brainwaves could be felt by feeling, then Professor Charles would not be called one of the strongest mutants. Li Ji looked at Magneto, then shook his head. I'm afraid only you can feel it. Maybe it's some kind of inexplicable bond. Just as Li Ji and Magneto were talking about this, 2 people with extremely abnormal vital signs and brainwaves appeared in China. The speed was so fast that Charles had just caught the signal that they appeared at the edge of BJ when they were already close to the main venue. Get ready. I think your child is coming, Max. Charles directly transmitted this message to Max through brainwaves. Max in the venue suddenly stood up. Chapter 808. Should I wait a little longer? As soon as Professor Charles's voice transmission arrived, Magneto suddenly stood up. Li Ji also understood what happened in an instant. He notified Lan immediately. Let Damon proceed as planned. I need his ability to fight Scarlet Witch. Quicksilver's speed is terrible, but Scarlet Witch's ability to modify the probability of events is even more terrible. She can make the bullets shoot at her turn, and can also make the natural gas explode. If she were to modify the probability of this matter, and then be killed by 2 super mutants to the real venue, then all the plans would be over. If Damon had not been found, Li Ji and others would never dare to let Scarlet and Quicksilver seize any opportunity to come here so easily. Especially when the entire venue was filled with envoys from various countries. Lan, who had been waiting in other places, immediately grabbed Damon. So far, Damon has not shown any backlash of ability. It seems that the preconditions are still sufficient, and then broke through the space door and went to a dark observation position that had been preset in the second venue. From here, you can observe the overall situation, but you won't be discovered. Because this is a completely closed space, unless the wall is destroyed violently, it is impossible to enter, except for those with space ability, of course. When you see something wrong on the field later, use your ability immediately, understand? Lan told Damon. Damon nodded vigorously. After receiving Schmidt's instructions, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver immediately ran towards BJ. Because Quicksilver's speed is so fast that it doesn't make sense. Now his speed can reach 400,000 kilometers per hour. This unreasonable speed makes it only a moment for him to get from Bermuda to BJ. His speed is incredible. He rushed into the venue like a whirlwind. And he had already prepared the weapons that Hydra had made for him. Some microbombs and a high-frequency dagger made based on the principle of high-frequency vibration cutting. But because Quicksilver brought his sister Scarlet Witch with him, he couldn't rush into the venue and kill people in one breath. He needed to pause and put Scarlet Witch down before he could enter the high-speed state again. And this moment is the time difference that Magneto, Luigi and others need. Because the speed is too fast, the appearance of Quicksilver and Scarlet is like a flash. Scarlet is about to start to use her ability to change probability. But Damon, who is Luigi's secret weapon, immediately said the lines that Luigi prepared for him at the beginning to activate his ability when the two figures appeared. Quicksilver falls. Quicksilver, who had just put Scarlet Witch down and was about to enter the high-speed state, was inexplicably tripped by the raised folds of the red carpet on the ground at the starting stage. The ground of the second venue was uneven, which was prepared long ago. Quicksilver, who is known for his fast running, flew out more than 10 meters away in an instant, just like being thrown out by a giant like a pinball, and he fell flat on his face. Bermuda, Schmidt was sitting in his office watching his TV. Katie's press conference was broadcast live around the world, so in theory, Schmidt should be sitting in the office and watching everything that happened in BJ through the TV. Quicksilver rushed into BJ's venue with Scarlet, causing chaos through massacres, and then it happened to be filmed by thousands of media outlets around the world at the same time, including dozens of the world's largest news organizations that were broadcasting the news live. In an instant, the information that the mutants were slaughtering and causing chaos would spread all over the world. Of course, the media people and reporters need to be killed last. Because Schmidt still needs these people to broadcast TV signals for him. Finally, all the news media people will be killed. If nothing unexpected happens, this will arouse the hatred of other media workers around the world. They will definitely work hard to exaggerate the importance and horror of this incident. They are the mouthpieces of the world. If they all start to criticize, the pressure of public opinion can affect the direction of politics. Of course, Scarlet and Quicksilver will be used as abandoned pawns this time. They will carry evidence that they are implicated by Magneto, which Schmidt secretly added to them. A piece of information that can prove that they are Magneto's children. Let everyone point the finger at Magneto. Whether it is ordinary people or mutants, with Magneto's character, a civil war is most likely inevitable. The Red Skull crossed his legs and looked at the screen on the TV. Now on the stage was President Katie answering questions from envoys from various countries. It seems that Quicksilver has not arrived yet. Well, we need to wait. Schmidt took a sip of coffee leisurely. Yes, wait a while. The world will change after waiting. SHIER. The Weather Witch reported to Zhang Xian, there was movement in the second venue. Zhang Xian pressed his hand, do a good job of protecting the perimeter of the first venue, and our people should not go in. If it is not necessary, do not publicly involve SHIER in this incident. I am taking a huge risk to do this. The best result is that the whole thing has never happened. Bring the Comfort God Squad, and everyone is on guard at the periphery. The Weather Witch nodded to Zhang Xian in understanding. She had brought all the people and was ready to rescue at any time. Of course, it's better not to. The Weather Witch sighed, I hope Tuvalu can handle this matter by itself. I still hope that this country will be good in the future and become a sheltered home for mutants. Quicksilver flew out and fell hard. As a speed mutant, Quicksilver relies on a special energy to break through the tunnel of space or time, rather than relying on his body to run at a speed of hundreds of thousands of kilometers per hour. Although he runs very fast, his body is not really able to withstand the strong wind resistance. So although Quicksilver is stronger than ordinary people, his strength is limited. One bullet can kill him. And it is also very uncomfortable for him to fly out and fall like this. And Damon, who used his ability to confront Quicksilver this time, also suffered a strong backlash. Puff. Nosebleeds instantly rushed out of his nasal cavity like a burst water pipe. This is the first time since he used his ability that it directly backfired on his body. Damn it, am I going to die, am I going to die? Damon was in a panic as he looked at the blood flowing from his body. Lan took out the medical bag that he had been carrying on his back and said, calm down, I'll stop the bleeding for you. But Damon stumbled in panic and stepped on the blood that had just gushed out of his nose. His foot slipped and he fell on his butt. Damon felt that his coccyx was about to break. Is this an equal exchange? He let Quicksilver fall, and then he also fell. It's hard to say who is worse. And all this happened in a flash. Scarlet Witch had just used her power when she saw her brother fall out. Her 10 fingers danced quickly. She needed to buff herself first before she could go to see how her brother was. The transformed siblings both prioritized the task. For example, Quicksilver, although he fell out, he happened to fall not far in front of the seat of the American ambassador. He thought this was a good opportunity. He took out a microbomb from his pocket and threw it directly at the unlucky ambassador. This time, at least the American ambassador and several people around him can be killed. Quicksilver thought well, but he seemed to have overlooked one thing. How come no one looked back at him when he fell so far and made such a loud noise in this solemn conference hall? Could it be that everyone's quality is so good? Or was Katie's speech so attractive? Boom! The microbomb exploded, but it didn't have any effect. The smoke dissipated, no one screamed, no one panicked. Although the chair was blown off, the American ambassador was still sitting upright in a horse stance. Quicksilver looked at him a little confused, but before he had time to figure out what was going on, a flash of lightning shot out from the darkness. If I were you, I wouldn't divert my attention at will. It seems that the Red Skull has made you and your brother stupid. You don't have any flexibility anymore. Is it because you've been brainwashed too much? Hey, Magneto, your son looks really young. These were the last words Quicksilver heard before he passed out. Bermuda. The coffee in Schmidt's hand was no longer warm, and his eyes were a little puzzled. What happened? Why did he wait so long? Did Quicksilver get lost on the road? Or was it a traffic jam? The leader of Hydra, Red Skull Schmidt, was holding a cold coffee, crossing his legs and watching TV. Katie's speech was always on TV. There was no trace of Scarlet Witch's Quicksilver. Red Skull touched the cold coffee. It seemed that the world was a little long. Could it be that the saying, "The waiting time is always hard to endure," was so correct? 10 minutes seemed as long as 30 minutes. Maybe I should get another cup of hot coffee? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 809 It's All a Lie. As soon as Scarlet and Quicksilver appeared, Damon had already activated his ability. The timing was just right. Although Damon also suffered backlash, it was not a big problem. Because the power of the word spirit he activated was just a simple power. People will always fall down. This is a common event, not an occasional event. If it weren't for the fact that the target of Damon's ability was Quicksilver, and because Quicksilver's ability was to run fast, the fact that he fell down would have a great impact on his ability. Otherwise, the backlash Damon suffered would definitely not be so severe. If he only used this ability on an ordinary person, Damon would probably not suffer any backlash. But sometimes a fall can change a lot of things. For example, Quicksilver. If a person's ability is to run fast and move fast, and people can't catch him, as long as he falls down, his ability will be completely useless. Quicksilver, who has not entered a high-speed state, is not scary at all. Because of the discomfort when he fell, Quicksilver was dazed, and he took the time to throw a microbomb. This gave Li-Ji the opportunity. In fact, there are very few forces deployed in this second venue, although Tuvalu told SHIE that their people would solve this matter, so as to prevent SHIE from being involved in complicated political events. Unless something unexpected happens, the mutant country of Tuvalu has formed several special idol hero teams according to Li-Ji's idea. But their main force is not here now. Instead, they are hidden in other places. They need to be stunning enough when they debut for the first time, and to make a perfect show. Just like what Thor did during the Battle of New York. Although they are all shows, the purpose is different. However, even if Tuvalu did not deploy any forces, Li-Ji and others have the confidence to catch Scarlet and Quicksilver. Because although there are few people in the second venue, it gathers Nightcrawler with the 10 Commandments, Marx, the King of Fake Medicine and Magneto, Damon, the word spirit, and Lan, who is equivalent to the strength of the Temple Master. Of course, there is also Professor Charles who is using the brainwave enhancer in the distance. Although there are few people, they are all elites. Well, although Magneto doesn't think much, he always feels that there seems to be a fake in here. The moment Quicksilver fell to the ground, he immediately summoned the Thunder Blade. Li Ji wanted to yell, "Here comes the blade!" at this moment, and then the Thunder Blade would fly out of his space belt. Then he would say, "Lightning comes," and then lightning would be emitted from the blade of the Thunder Blade. Is this cool? Well, although it may be a bit second year, but it is undeniable that it is very cool to pretend like this. Li Ji usually doesn't want to pretend to be this bee, but maybe it's because he has confirmed the relationship with Lan, and she is still observing in secret. Li Ji inexplicably wanted to pretend, but he held back at the last moment. Because think about it, he is beating someone else's child, and the child's father is not far away. It is possible that after he finishes beating his child, this kind father will turn around and beat him. Although he said that he beat him completely for his own good. However, Quicksilver's youth is indeed beyond Li Ji's expectations. He looks like he is in his early 20s, and you can't tell that his actual age is over 50. At the moment when Li Ji stunned Quicksilver, Magneto also attacks Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch's ability is to change probability, which is very buggy to use. It can be infinitely strong, but it can also be infinitely weak. It can detonate a nuclear bomb to plunge the world into a terrible crisis, but it may not even kill a mosquito. Scarlet 10 Fingers flew, and layers of scarlet particles began to spread in the air. She was trying her best to modify the probability of events, mainly to deal with Magneto. She wanted to modify the probability of Magneto activating his ability. Make Magneto's ability temporarily ineffective, or in other words, not effective on herself. But although Scarlet Witch has undergone a lot of training and has actual combat experience, but she has never faced a strong man like Magneto. Don't expect to use her way of modifying probability to take effect directly on the opponent when dealing with such a real strong man. It is almost impossible. In addition, Damon barely used his ability once after falling down. Magneto caught Scarlet Witch, just like the spirit of words Damon. If he used his power on Magneto and said to him, Magneto lost his power and turned into a weird old man. Such a spiritual power would most likely fail, and he would most likely be beaten up by Magneto, and perhaps even killed. It is best not to use this spiritual power, or the ability to modify probability, directly on such a strong person. Just like Damon did to Quicksilver just now, he did not use any strong spiritual power such as Quicksilver lost his power or Quicksilver was caught. Instead, he used a very peaceful spiritual power. Quicksilver fell down. In fact, making Quicksilver fall flat on the ground is the best way that Li Ji and Damon can think of to use their abilities. Those powerful spiritual powers that seem to be able to do what they say look cool and handsome, but they will never be realized. With the premise of the ground being bumpy and uneven, and just making Quicksilver fall down, this simple ability made Damon bleed from his nose, and he almost couldn't stand up from the fall. Maybe he really broke his bones, so if Scarlet Witch wants to modify the probability of Magneto now, it is best not to go directly against Magneto's strongest side, which is almost doomed to fail. What she should modify are, the probability of Magneto falling flat, the probability of Magneto's zipper not being zipped up properly and causing him to be injured, the probability of Magneto's sudden finger cramps causing his ability to be deformed, and the probability of Magneto suddenly having diarrhea because of eating the food made by Li Ji at noon. The probability of modifying these things is relatively high and easier to achieve. Damn it. Scarlet Witch looked at Magneto, who was getting closer and closer, and was a little flustered. Her ability was originally to be matched with someone to achieve the maximum performance, such as Quicksilver. Scarlet Witch's greatest ability is to add or reduce buffs to people. If it is a team battle, her position is to play a support role rather than an ADC. It is not Scarlet's characteristic to face Scarlet head-on. Magneto tried his best to face Scarlet with a blank expression. But he couldn't help but waver in his heart, because Scarlet Witch's gray-green eyes were exactly the same as her mother's. But now is not the time to reminisce about the past, and the happy ending is not the time to be shown. Magneto's strong magnetic ability was instantly activated with a wave of his hand. Magneto, as the name suggests, is the king of magnetism. He can use the magnetic field of the entire Earth as his weapon. Can Scarlet Witch rely on her own strength to fight against the Earth? Anyway, she doesn't have this ability now. A steady stream of electromagnetic power pressed towards Scarlet layer by layer. although Scarlet tried her best to exert her ability to make those electromagnetics deviate in various inexplicable ways. But Scarlet's ability is limited, and Magneto seems to be able to deal with Scarlet with ease. When Scarlet was finally exhausted and was caught and knocked unconscious by Magneto, Luigi notified Lan, take them all to Professor Charles, you know what to do. Lan broke through the space gate and directly took away the injured Damon, the unconscious Scarlet and Quicksilver. Luigi said to Magneto, it's almost time for us to leave. Notify the people from Tuvalu to clean up, as if nothing happened. Magneto nodded silently, and then said, then it's time for them to put on a show. Luigi pointed in the direction of the Pacific Ocean, as long as everything goes well. Anyway, it's hard to say who is scheming against whom. I wonder if the Red Skull is watching the TV with joy now, waiting for the world to fall into chaos. Bermuda. Bang. The innocent TV was shattered into pieces. The murder weapon was a coffee cup and the cold coffee in it. The flying fragments were scattered everywhere, and the fragments of the LCD screen mixed with a brown coffee made the originally tidy office a mess. But dismantling and destroying a TV can't eliminate Schmidt's anger. He was furious now, making his face even redder, although it was already red. What the hell, the waiting time is long, is a lie. It's not that the waiting time is long, but that 40 minutes have really passed. Schmidt had already smelled something was wrong. Chapter 810 Powder appears. At the BJ's venue. President Katie. The one who raised his hand to ask the question was an Associated Press reporter, although you have repeatedly assured that Tuvalu will contribute to world and regional peace. And believe that mutants will play a role. The AP reporter paused, but we know that mutants are more often the source of trouble in this world. Please forgive me for being a little rude. But this is the fact. There have been large-scale riots caused by the awakening of mutants in the United States before, with heavy casualties and a lot of chaos. Many people have done all kinds of illegal things. I don't think that just establishing a mutant country can change all this. The idea is beautiful, but the reality is cruel, isn't it? President Katie. The AP reporter said all this calmly. It is difficult to say whether this topic of deliberately making things difficult for Katie was his own idea, or whether there was a government instruction behind it. Although the media often claim to be a spokesperson for fairness and freedom, and keep expressing their neutrality and innocence. But in reality they can never get rid of the influence of the government on them. This is true for both free and democratic countries in ancient and modern times, both at home and abroad. Free countries refer to NATO countries led by the United States, and democratic countries refer to Warsaw Pact countries led by the Soviet Union. These were the policies advocated by the two political systems at the time. For example, the question asked by the Associated Press reporter was obviously quite pointed. He stared at Katie with sharp eyes, waiting for Katie to give an answer. If it was Katie a year ago, she would probably be a little at a loss when faced with such aggressive questioning. But after more than a year of hard work, Katie, who is now 18 years old, has become a mature and capable qualified leader. She is no longer a little girl who will cry when scared by a few people. Her eyes are full of confidence. Sir, first of all, I don't deny everything you said. It is precisely because the awakening of some mutants will cause damage that we need to pay more attention to all these problems. Because we don't know which one will awaken. Nor do we know how they will awaken. Many people regard mutants as a contagious virus and think that as long as they stay away from mutants, they will not be infected, but this is not correct. Katie waved her arms vigorously. This is actually a recessive gene that is inherited in our bodies. Everyone may carry it. I'm even bold enough to say that maybe you, Mr. Reporter, have such a gene in your body. Nonsense. The reporter shouted angrily. Katie smiled and nodded. Look, your performance is a good example of the attitude of most people towards mutants now. You think that isolating or locking up all the existing mutants can solve everything, but this is not realistic. The spread of genes cannot be solved by some simple physical means. Just like you just lost your temper. You think being a mutant is an insult to you, right? Katie's eyes were directly facing the reporter from the Associated Press. The reporter from the Associated Press couldn't speak directly, so he nodded and said, that's right. Because the other party is a mutant president. Who knows what consequences will come from his outspoken words like this? But he didn't need to speak. The expression on his face was enough to explain a lot of things. Katie was no longer surprised by this expression. She just continued, in fact, looking at your expression I know I'm right. and your dislike for mutants comes from your misunderstanding of them. Katie said loudly to the thousands of people in the venue, "This is exactly what we need to do. Let more people understand mutants. The awakening of mutant abilities does not happen without signs, there will always be some signs. We need popular science propaganda to let everyone know more that mutants are not a disease. It is something that comes from our genes themselves. Just like the voice change during puberty. This is just a process that some people need to go through. The establishment of Tuvalu is not only to build a sheltered home for mutants, but also a window for more people to understand and know mutants. In this world, it is always better to guide than to block, and to understand than to be closed. When we are used to looking at a person or a thing with a pair of tinted glasses, we will be blinded by the trees and not see the big picture. We habitually put a certain symbol on a certain thing, and define them with a symbol from then on. Katie pointed at herself and the crowd in the audience. It's the same for me, you, and him. There is a fence between us that prevents us from truly understanding each other. We always need someone to climb over the fence and say hello to our neighbors first. Katie pointed at herself again, her bright face looking very excited. Now I have climbed over the fence. And I have sent a sincere greeting to my neighbors. Neighbors, a general term for other national organizations, with freshly made chocolate brownies. Whether I am greeted with sparkling wine and pool parties, or brooms and shotguns, I have done it. Someone has to take the first step, right? Isn't that why I am standing here today, and why everyone is here? A choice, wine or shotgun. Katie's speech left the reporter from the Associated Press speechless. He couldn't find a way to refute the girl's words for a while. But as a veteran reporter, he reacted quickly. He replied, "But as I said before, President Katie, how can you ensure that Tuvalu is a country that is peace-loving? A country that is made up entirely of mutants?" Katie nodded slightly. In fact, there are good and bad people among ordinary people. Good and bad are never defined by race. For example, you are white, and this place, China, is mainly inhabited by yellow people. Can you say that white people are better than yellow people, or purer? The AP reporter instantly felt that many eyes were staring at him, and some of them obviously contained some malicious elements. This young girl is so insidious. No matter how she answered this question, it would be wrong. So the reporter could only shut up. Katie looked at the reporter who shut up and nodded with satisfaction, and then said to everyone in the venue, "Some things this reporter said are actually right. Regarding how Tuvalu expresses its sincerity, we need to first prove that we have no malice and are committed to improving regional peace." Katie said these words and bowed to the audience for no reason. "I'm sorry, everyone, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend this meeting. I'm honored to have you here, but I'm sorry that I didn't come to the venue to meet you face to face." There was an uproar in the audience, and Katie said that she was not at the venue, which surprised everyone in the venue. If she was not at the venue, then who was on the podium? Katie looked at the audience on the stage and smiled apologetically. "I'm sorry, everyone. A new holographic projection device allows me to keep in touch with you thousands of miles away and transmit the impact synchronously." Katie on the stage was originally wearing a neat uniform suit, but suddenly it turned into a tight combat uniform. And the holographic projection device also projected the background where Katie was now. It looked like a sci-fi aircraft cabin, and behind her there was a group of soldiers dressed like her. If there was anything in common among these soldiers, it was that a sharp-eyed reporter noticed that it seemed that all the soldiers were young and handsome, beautiful. A group of people who look more like idols than warriors gathered together. What are they going to do? Katie was a mature and experienced leader just now, but she instantly transformed into a hot super warrior. Katie, wearing a black and dark green combat uniform, smiled and said to the people in the venue, "Here I will solemnly explain to everyone the contribution that Tuvalu and mutants can make to world peace. Outside the glass window of the cabin is the Atlantic Ocean. P.S. Keep asking for votes." Chapter 811 War declared. The high seas of the Pacific Ocean. Land broke through the space gate and came to the warship where the professor was, and threw the unconscious Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver to the professor's feet. As for the injured and bleeding Damon, she simply bandaged him and put him somewhere else. After all, Damon is just a hired hero now, and Lan doesn't trust this guy that much. For Lan, Damon is just a worker who received money from Li Ji. When throwing Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver to the professor's feet, Lan nodded to the professor. "I caught them." G said he would start the next step. Professor Charles nodded slightly. He rarely takes the initiative to read people's memories, but it does not mean that he will not read people's memories. For example, in this situation, he quickly reads the memories of Quicksilver and Scarlet. Although Hydra has taken some protective measures for the memories of the two and deliberately blurred some things, but the details are always not perfect. And it is these imperfections that reveal flaws, and there are places for Professor Charles to find loopholes. Professor Charles, who has a genius brain, has found the blurred salinity of the seawater, the unstable wind direction, the sun's deflection and the angle of the shadow at 9 o'clock in the memory of Quicksilver and Scarlet. Through the precise calculations of him and Professor Hank, they have already known the specific location of the Hydra headquarters. Dr. Hank has just calculated the location of the entire Hydra headquarters through the Super AI, Friday, of Venus, and he immediately sent a letter to Charles and Lee G. The 3X teams, which have been ready to stand by according to the plan, immediately headed to the target location after receiving the coordinates from Professor Charles. The 3X teams are exactly the teams that Lee G proposed before. A young team responsible for being handsome and cool. The members are Iceman, Torrent, Angel, Note, Cannon, Note, and the leader is Katie. The composition of this team is based on the considerations of the popular groups nowadays, and it is a 5-member team. In particular, it uses a composition of 4 men and 1 woman, and Katie is the leader of Tuvalu. This combination can cause enough topics. The Queen and her 4 knights sound very cool. The name of this team was named X-Men, New Generation, which means to create a new era of mutants. The other main fighting force considered before is the so-called Handsome Team. The members are Wolverine, Cyclops, Colossus, and Gambit. This team does not need to be too cool, but it must show an image of a resolute and brave real man. The image of these 4 middle-aged men, it seems that someone's age is over the standard, fits this theme very well. They are called X-Men, the core. Finally, there is the female team, which consists of 5 people: Phoenix, Storm, Silk, Blink, and Sonic. 5 beautiful women with different styles. Some are capable, some are wild, some are gentle, and some are rebellious. They are 5 people with completely different personalities, but they have an unusual tacit understanding. They are called X-Men, Phoenix Team. Whether it is Tuvalu or these X-Men teams, they need a perfect appearance to make the world remember them. They need to show strength, but also show peace. This is a very difficult thing to grasp. But I don't know whether it is fortunate or unfortunate. When everyone was thinking about how to let these 3 teams show their image and promote Tuvalu's positive image and strength, Lee G put forward his idea. Isn't there still Hydra? Lee G said, anyway, this time we have to help Magneto find his children. At the same time, Magneto, Dr. Banner and Dr. Doom all want to make trouble for Hydra. Why don't we just do it together this time? Anyway, too many lice don't itch, and too many debts don't worry. We want to destroy Hydra, and we have caused Hydra a lot of trouble. We don't mind causing them more trouble and making more use of their last surplus value. Lee G talked freely, whether it's Dr. Banner, Magneto, or Dr. Doom. These 3 people don't need to appear in front of the public for publicity. They don't need to do this. But they are all very capable, and they are willing to work hard to eliminate Hydra this time. Why don't we do a show? Let's completely eliminate Hydra, and then attribute all the credit to the Tuvalu X-Men team. Lee G proposed the following idea: since it's just a show, let's show it thoroughly. Let Tuvalu and the mutants completely wipe out Hydra. They eliminated the great danger that threatened the world for decades. I think this is the best positive publicity, right? In the Blackbird fighter, Logan was wearing a black and dark green combat uniform, grinding his adamantium claws out of boredom. The sizzling sound was annoying. Can you stop grinding your claws, Logan? This sound annoys me. Cyclops Scott has always been at odds with Logan. It's mainly because of Scott's girlfriend Jean Grey. Logan seemed to have set his sights on Jean Grey, who had beautiful red hair, and was persistent in digging Scott's corner. To be honest, Scott was really magnanimous for not using an infrared ray on Logan when he wasn't paying attention. Scott is really a broad-minded person. At least he never blamed Jean Grey for the unclear relationship between her and Logan. Although Logan's feelings for Jean Grey are mostly one-sided, at least Jean has no intention of leaving Scott yet. Logan shrugged his shoulders after listening to Scott's words and stopped sharpening his claws. Since practicing Vajra Fury, His temper has become better and better, under normal conditions, and he inexplicably feels that his desire for women has also decreased. Logan is actually very upset, and even the number of times he harasses Jean Grey has decreased. He suspects that something is wrong with him. But he can't find out what is wrong with him, so sometimes he will sharpen his claws in annoyance. Don't be nervous, Scott. This is just a show, just a show. Logan said these words carelessly. We are not really fighting against Hydra. Professor Charles has already arranged it. When we get there, we will probably just clean up the miscellaneous soldiers. Then pose, and then you can attract a large number of fans with your Soldier 76 look. When did you play Overwatch? Scott looked at Logan in disbelief. I mean, you, an old antique, also play computer games. Logan did not comment. I have 2 children and adolescents. I need to learn to communicate with them. Huh? Scott looked at Logan in more and more disbelief. Well, Wolverine may have become a super dad now? But Scott will not underestimate Logan, who has a good temper now. Because he knows that when Logan uses his ability and really starts to burst out his anger, he is more than 10 times stronger than the Wolverine, who only knows how to act recklessly before. As the two chatted, Katie's voice came from the plane. Gentlemen, are you ready? Below us is the headquarters of Hydra. This time we need to make a shining debut and beat Hydra. Don't forget that this time we are broadcasting live to the world. 3 Blackbird fighters have already arrived above the Hydra headquarters. And this time, Tuvalu will celebrate their first shining debut in a global live broadcast. Katie's picture was also transmitted to other parts of the world, and everyone could receive the live broadcast from BJ through satellite signals. With the new AR playback technology, all the reporters and diplomatic envoys in the venue looked at the stage in surprise. Katie, dressed in military uniform, announced to the world, this time, the mutants of Tuvalu will show our courage and determination to defend the world. We officially declare war on Hydra. The camera moved outward, and there was a lonely island on the Sea of Bermuda in the Atlantic Ocean, which looked uninhabited. And a group of brave mutant warriors on the Blackbird fighter jumped out of the plane. P.S. Angel appeared in the third part of the old X-Men, a mutant with a pair of angel wings. Not very powerful, except for the wings and ability to fly. Everything else is very weak. In the comics, he became a little stronger after transformation and mutation again. But he also became uglier. So here we use the original setting, that is, a big boy with angel wings. His main combat ability relies on technological items. The addition of Angel is purely to show off and attract fans. He is a handsome boy who belongs to the Prince type. PS2 Cannon, a friend of Roberto the Sunspot, a powerful mutant. His body can be energized, he can fly at high speed, he can release energy shock waves, etc. One shot can destroy a large space battleship. He looks sunny and simple, like a big boy next door. Chapter 812. It's time to attract fans. Tony, are you ready? Lee G's voice came from the communicator to Tony Stark's earphones. Mr. Iron Man was flying at an altitude of 10,000 meters, wearing his black and gold nano armor, and unfolded the invisible state of the armor. Of course, but why do you want me to do a job similar to that of a director or a broadcast director? Tony was a little depressed. He felt that he was a little overqualified. Because you have a great sense of camera position. Lee G said normally, every time you walk on the red carpet or shoot a magazine cover, you seem to be able to find the correct camera position without anyone's instruction, and every time you stand in a place with just the right lighting. Honestly, Tony, I think there are not many Hollywood stars who live with you in Los Angeles who can be compared with you. Even those movie emperors don't have the same sensitivity as you. You are born to stand under the spotlight and show your handsomeness and talent. This time we want to let the mutants of Tuvalu make a perfect appearance, but all the camera positions for the broadcast must be limited. Everyone who watches this video broadcast must feel that, wow, this group of mutant police completely destroyed Hydra. Don't cut me, Magneto, Dr. Banner, Doom and others in. You have to use the camera's perspective to eliminate us all and treat us as if we don't exist. We don't have other professionals to do this here, but I believe you have this talent. You are born for this. Lee G shamelessly flattered Tony Stark. Although these words were obviously flattery, Tony liked them very much and benefited greatly from them. Well, to put it bluntly, Tony just liked others to praise him. Of course, you need to praise in a certain way, because flattery is a science. Especially people like Tony, who have a little bit of the neuroticism of the mad scientist and a little bit of childishness, are the most troublesome. You have to learn to stroke the donkey by the hair so that it won't get angry, and the same is true for Tony. While Lee Ji said these words to Tony, he was killing people in the Hydra headquarters in Bermuda. A thunder knife and a pair of 10 rings gloves made him majestic. Purple lightning dragons kept gushing out from the thunder knife, setting off a huge wave. The headquarters of Hydra is located on a deserted island in Bermuda. There are some buildings on the surface, but not many. And they have been carefully disguised, and the surface even uses the stealth technology stolen from S.H.I.E.L.D., the first generation of stealth technology invented by Dr. Hank. From the outside, you can't see the deserted island and the Hydra headquarters. However, since this stealth technology is derived from Dr. Hank naturally has a way to make them completely ineffective. Therefore, the external stealth and interference devices of the Hydra headquarters were completely destroyed by Dr. Hank's invasion. It also allowed the world to see the true appearance of the Hydra headquarters for the first time. And all this is attributed to the mutant team in Tuvalu. In short, this time the entire Illuminati used all its strength to carry the sedan chair for Tuvalu. The bigwigs of the Illuminati hope to solve the problem of mutants once and for all. Although it is difficult, they always have to try. When Lee Ji used the ice ring to create an absolute zero area of tens of thousands of square meters and froze all the Hydra mercenaries who rushed up to stop him into slag, Tony's communication came again. Don't tear down everything that can be dismantled, otherwise I won't be able to take pictures for Katie and the others later. Tony broadcast to all members this time. On the other side of the island, Magneto originally intended to crush the signal tower and other buildings at the dock into a ball, but he finally held back. Dr. Banner, who was very angry about his girlfriend's kidnapping, had just flattened a small hill and the fortress building on it in the northwest corner. After hearing what Tony said, Banner thought that maybe he should hold back. Thor, who was flying outside the island and clearing the airspace so that all the Hydra fighters that took off would hit mines and crash to make way for Katie and her Blackbird fighters, was preparing to have a meteor shower covering the entire island, but he finally stopped. After a certain destruction Wizard Doom heard what Tony said, he boom 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 okay, he might not have heard it. Actually, what you just said is right, Nightcrawler. Tony switched the voice to the private channel and said to Lee Ji, I think I have great talent in directing and acting. So why do you object to me starring in my own movie? The personal movie Tony was talking about was the first comic hero movie jointly created by Disney and Marvel Group, Iron Man, Resurrection, adapted from the real story of Tony Stark. It tells the story of how a prodigal son transformed into a superhero. Disney modified some of the plots of the comics and wrote the script and showed it to Tony. Tony was very satisfied. He even said that he could play the leading role. Tony Stark lives in Los Angeles and has contacts with many Hollywood celebrities. He knows Hollywood very well. Disney welcomes Tony to play the leading role, but the salary is difficult to determine. After all, for a world-class rich man, a salary of 10 or 20 million US dollars does not really feel sincere, but Disney cannot take more money. Fortunately, Lee Ji cast a dissenting vote at this time. As the holder of another 50% of the film, Lee Ji has a veto power in casting. It's impossible to invite Tony Stark to be the lead actor. It's better not to think so. You want Stark Group to enter the entertainment industry? Well, Tony may not care about the entertainment industry or the money from a few movies, but don't forget his right-hand man, Pepper Potts. If you deal with her, you will be sucked dry of every penny of profit. I'm not kidding. Lee Ji said to the Disney executives at the time. So the Disney executives immediately decided not to consider Tony as the lead actor, although there are many gimmicks to do so. Finally, at Lee Ji's suggestion, they interviewed Robert Downey Jr. His appearance is 50% similar to Tony. After being made up by Hollywood makeup artists, the two can almost look like they were carved from the same mold. He is a very suitable actor. Downey, who is not doing well in his career, cherished this opportunity very much. He worked extremely hard on the set and his professionalism was admirable. In response to Tony's question, Lee Ji calmly replied, "It's very simple, because you don't have that much time to deal with these things. You have to be a superhero, manage a company, and invent. Pepper has complained to me that you don't have enough time to accompany her. I don't want you to act in a movie, otherwise Pepper will be angry with both of us." Well, Tony was relieved to hear Lee Ji's explanation. Pepper wanted to spend more time with her, which was a good reason. Of course, Tony would not know the original words and the truth of what Pepper said to Lee Ji at that time. He has so many ex-girlfriends and mistresses in Hollywood that they can be stacked in containers. I could ignore it because it was his private matter. But now I am Mrs. Stark, and my name is Pepper Stark instead of Pepper Potts. Do you think I can let my husband get involved with his former mistress? At that time, Pepper called Lee G specially. So, Jason, think of a way to make Tony give up this idea. I can tolerate him going out to save the world, but I can't tolerate him getting involved with the scumbags in Hollywood. Lee G remembered that this sentence was very rude. Lee G felt that he couldn't tell Tony the original words, otherwise he would definitely explode. But this can't be blamed on Pepper, who told Tony to be undisciplined in the past. When Tony got married, the Weibo of Hollywood female stars and many supermodels exploded. They all wished their ex-boyfriends a happy wedding. And someone was very unscrupulous and tagged Pepper. To be honest, Pepper didn't explode at that time but chose to spend a honeymoon with Tony. It was already generous. What else do you expect from her? Okay, your reasons are very sufficient. But why choose Robert Downey Jr.? A second-rate actor with no fame? Can't you choose Leonardo? Tony was still struggling with the issue of actors. Because Robert Downey Jr. looks more like you. Lee G said. How is he similar? He is not as elegant and handsome as me. Tony's narcissism recurred. It's mainly the height. Lee G's sudden words made Tony silent instantly. Would he want to fly down and beat people now? Lee G was not sure. Because he was busy clearing the main entrance square of the Hydra base. Ice, plus, Vortex, just using these two rings, let Lee G kill people everywhere. With a Thunderblade and Purple Thunder 9 strike, ordinary Hydra soldiers or some cyborgs or robots were not lethal to Lee G. Lee G listened to Tony's heavy breathing in the communicator, and he immediately changed the subject. The Blackbird fighter is here. Katie and the others are going to jump down, and prepare to broadcast Tony throughout the whole process. We want them to have a perfect appearance. A dozen coolly dressed X-Men fell from the sky. Tony controlled the fully automatic flying camera to seamlessly switch between various angles such as overhead shooting, side shooting, and upward shooting, creating a feeling of divine soldiers descending from the sky for everyone. And through the angle limitation of the camera position and the seamless switching of the editing, what was presented to the world audience was a complete Hydra headquarters and the surging Hydra soldiers. The video shot by Lee G and his team 20 minutes ago when they first arrived was seamlessly edited into Katie and her team's video. Then Katie and her team smiled and showed their weapons in the face of the surging Hydra soldiers. The beautiful girl, the cold weapons, the hot clothes and the surging enemies. At this moment, the mutant female president Katie won countless fans. Chapter 813 Family Conflicts and Happiness. New York, Mutant Bar. Cool. The bartender nicknamed Glue couldn't help but admire, because just now on the TV screen, mutant President Katie and her knights fell from the sky, relying on the deceleration function of the combat suit, a retractable nano-membrane, without opening parachutes. For those who don't know their combat suits, it looks like they jumped from a height of several hundred meters without any damage. Handsome poses, cool uniforms, cold energy blasters, bright-eyed and white-toothed young girls, and surging enemies. The screen gave a close-up freeze when Katie's mouth corners raised and smiled. Then the TV broadcast actually inserted a burst of BGM of beautiful superwomen, but Lee G and Tony had a dispute about inserting this BGM. Because the right to the entire broadcast and the perspective switch is in Tony's hands, including the post-production and dubbing sound effects are all handled by Jarvis. Lee G's face changed when he heard "Is she with you?" through the communicator. Wait, you can't just use the BGM of DG and Warner Brothers next door. I signed the copyright of X-Men with them, they are Marvel's people. Lee G shouted to Tony in the communicator, especially for a global broadcast like this, I may receive a lawyer's letter in the future. We don't have the authorization for this BGM. This is written for beautiful Supergirl. Tony did not comment on Lee G's complaint. What's the big deal? At most, we can buy the right to use this song. Lee G, he felt that he could not communicate. Please, DG and Warner are enemy stations, okay? You give them money and promote their songs. Isn't this called aiding the enemy? Exclamation mark. In wartime, such behavior will be pulled out and shot. Putting aside these unknown quarrels, Glue couldn't help but think that this X-Men team is so cool. The young female president and her guards are declaring war on the largest evil organization in the human world, so cool. On the TV screen, Katie led her team to attack left and right. The flying camera performed flying actions in various ways. Tony constantly adjusted the perspective of each camera position through the armor, and matched it with various music he personally liked, plus Jarvis real-time post-processing. They really turned a global TV live broadcast into a show. Cool members, explosive soundtracks, and a combination of fast and slow shots. In order to meet the broadcast standard, all shots have been processed, and there will be no frontal bloody scenes. This makes an attack feel like a Hollywood blockbuster, except that Hollywood blockbusters are all acting, and Katie and the others, well, also acting. In fact, the place where they fell from the sky had been cleared by Lee Ji to ensure that the surrounding area was absolutely safe. Because they need a time to make a styling appearance, pose, make an expression, etc. These need to be captured by the camera and transmitted to all parts of the world. But in actual combat, it is impossible to give them this time to do this. Because the endless stream of soldiers and surging firepower will make people feel stretched. In fact, real fighting is not handsome or cool at all. Lee Ji asked Tony to record his battle, and after watching it, he felt stupid. A stupid hooded man wielded a big knife and hacked around for no reason. The movements did not look beautiful. Actual fighting is mainly practical, and sometimes some movements were inexplicably vulgar, such as when dodging some attacks. Lee Ji watched Thor's battle from a distance, and he also felt stupid. It was just a fat man constantly releasing lightning. Occasionally, he would grab people and throw them around. There was no sense of excitement like watching superhero movies in the cinema. As for Magneto and Dr. Banner, it's better not to mention them. Doom the Destruction Wizard was just endless boom boom boom, some of which were caused by the melta-cannon on his armor, and some were the new spells he learned. If you want to fight beautifully, apart from the moves in the movie, you can only beat the opponent by a lot, and the number of enemies is appropriate. If the number of enemies is too large, there will always be some ugly places. We want to establish a good image for the new X-Men team, not a murderous maniac or something. We want to make it like a Disney family movie. This is our purpose. Of course, we also need our audience to not be able to tell. The requirement proposed by Lee Ji is actually quite high. For this reason, Jarvis, as a super AI, had to teach himself various shooting techniques on the internet, including watching various videos. Although Lee Ji doubted whether it could understand movies. Don't doubt my aesthetics, sir. Jarvis explained, I can find the beauty that conforms to mathematical arrangement from those fast-rolling bit rates. In fact, those movies that you think are good will always have something in common if they are decomposed into digital codes. I just need to calculate their formulas. Well, Jarvis should just do the post-production work with peace of mind, and let Tony do the improvement of the photography beauty. He was born with a talent in this area. On the top of a high-rise building in New York. Cool, so cool. Sam, the toilet boy, danced with joy. Don't you think their fighting style is super cool? Look at this mutant with wings. What's his name? Oh, the close-up subtitles were shown later. His name is Angel. Are his wings real? The leather chair he wears is so cool. And what weapon does he use? It looks like the angel sword on the church mural. Shut up, Sam. You're disturbing my TV. Mindy, who is holding a laptop, didn't even turn her head to ask her younger brother to shut up. She was sitting side by side with Laura watching the TV broadcast. Behind them were the rising star Sam and kick-ass David. Mindy and Laura were holding piles of snacks in their hands. Sam and David were the younger brothers who were responsible for handing out Coke and drinks. Originally, only Sam was a younger brother. But because they had attended Tony's wedding before, they finally got Lego's Supreme VIP Super Invincible Diamond Card. They can directly pick up any Lego product without restrictions and in unlimited quantities. Even some out-of-print and rarely produced Lego bricks that are highly priced can be mentioned. For example, the Lego Technic Porsche 911, which is limited to 1,000 units worldwide, and the Saturn V rocket, which is highly priced. After Mindy generously gave David a Lego Technic Porsche 911, Kick-Ass David was recruited by her. Mindy has always wanted to expand the number of his subordinates, but she is still very picky about people, so currently there are only two of them, Sam and David. Although it is a bit embarrassing for David, as the leader of the Justice League, to work for two little girls. But thinking about Mindy's promise to give him a box of Saturn V Lego bricks at the end of this month, David's resentment disappeared, and he humbly handed the two bosses a Coke. I heard that your father went there too. Mindy pointed to the X-Men team fighting bravely on the screen. The cool Queen and Knight team, the beautiful Phoenix team, and the taciturn middle-aged man team. Kaz Laura bit a potato chip and made a crisp sound. After finishing the potato chip silently, she said, "It seems so, but I don't really understand." Mindy looked at Laura, and then said in a tone of someone who had experienced it, "Are you having a conflict with your father? It seems that you are not getting along well. It sounds like adolescent girls will be like this sometimes. For example, sometimes I feel that Big Daddy, Frank, and Mike are annoying, right? Are you still holding a grudge against them for confiscating the snacks you got from the White House?" Laura complained silently. "No, of course not. Listen, this matter is over and you are not allowed to mention it again." Mindy regarded this as her own dark history. Because she later found out that she was stupid. She had so much of the dark history of the White House, but she only extorted small snacks for 20 years? Stupid. So many snacks are too easy to be discovered. Look at how Tony did it. A VIP card would be enough. I should have a lifetime free pickup card for major snack stores. In that way, maybe I wouldn't be discovered by the night watchman, and I wouldn't have my snacks confiscated and be put in solitary confinement. It's really stupid. Laura shrugged and took a bottle of Coke from David and started drinking it. She burped a bottle of carbonated soda and said, "Actually, I just don't like him pestering Dr. Jean Grey every day. I think it's immoral for him to do this because I have a good relationship with Cyclops Scott. Every time he goes out and comes back to see me, he will bring me some stuffed toys. Although I don't like some of them very much, he is a good person. I have such a good relationship with him, but my dad wants to steal his girlfriend. It's very difficult for me to be caught in the middle." Mindy frowned as if she couldn't understand. "It seems a bit complicated." Laura nodded. "Yes, it is very complicated. So now I don't even read X-Men comics. Especially the publications about Wolverine and Cyclops. I feel embarrassed when I read them. I would rather read the part about Magneto. That seems to be your dad's super nemesis," Mindy reminded. Laura nodded. "Yes, that's why I want to watch it. Knowing yourself and your enemy will ensure victory in every battle. This is what Scott taught me. It seems that she has a good relationship with Scott. I wonder if this will ease the relationship between Logan and Scott, or deepen it. The boys behind them don't care about the things the two girls whispered about. They are just paying attention to how the handsome X-Men on the computer screen are bravely fighting Hydra. Both boys are attracted by the beautiful Katie. Of course, it's not just them. This time, countless people watching the live broadcast around the world were stunned by the performance of the X-Men and were attracted by them. Some people think that maybe mutants are not so bad. Tony connected to the internet in real time through Jarvis and paid attention to the comments of netizens. He forwarded these comments to everyone. The leaders of the Illuminati were very happy about this, which proved that their plan was starting to go in a good direction. This is the first step, but also the most important step. As long as the first step is taken well, then the next thing will be easy. But the happiness of several leaders of the Illuminati does not mean that everyone will be happy. For example, Schmidt, who is now in the Hydra headquarters, is very unhappy. Chapter 814 You forced me. Explosions, smoke, shouting. Now the entire Hydra headquarters island is full of uneasiness. They have never been invaded so strongly. Hydra is a warlike organization, at least during World War II. But many things are changing with the passage of time. Especially in the decades when Schmidt disappeared, Hydra was deeply divided. The splitting of Hydra was a strategy Schmidt made before he fell asleep, in order to ensure the continuation of Hydra. This is a good plan. He let Hydra's tentacles spread all over the world and every industry. This gave Hydra extraordinary resources and vigorous vitality. But this is also a failed strategy. If a villain organization that mainly fights and makes trouble lives in an era of debauchery for a long time, can they still maintain the iron and blood of the past? The answer is uncertain, maybe, but more likely not. Please, no one is born to want to destroy and make trouble. Except for some people with mental deviations or some quirks, most people like a more comfortable life. Enjoy music, food and wine, high-rise buildings and luxurious mansions, or enjoy being close to nature and traveling around the world. Hydra has so many industries and made so much money over the years. Are its top executives corrupt? Think about it. If you have hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars in assets to spend and let you fully enjoy life, would you still want to continue to climb up? This is a question mark. Some people may have greater ambitions, but more people may have stopped here. What they want more is to maintain their current life. Not everyone is eager to rule the world. Many people even think that ruling a certain industrial chain is an extremely difficult and impossible thing. There is no shortage of such people in Hydra. These senior executives enjoy the bonus life brought to them by Hydra. All they want is to maintain their own lives. A noble and decent upper-class life. Not everyone has a strong desire for power like the Red Skull. The strongest fortress is often not captured from the outside. In fact, it is not difficult to see that Hydra is going downhill again when it is difficult for Hydra to recruit people. Damon left Hydra because the treatment at Hydra was too low. Times have changed. Schmidt's boasting about ideals and passion is no longer suitable for the present. This is an era of material desires. Young people's favorite pastimes are no longer poetry and literature, and the talks in cafes are no longer about ideas and reforms. Open your eyes and see what everyone likes now. Young people like the internet and games, and the talks in cafes are also about the fashion and gossip of the season. This is an era that attaches more importance to private will and free will. Is Red Skull Schmidt a stupid person? No, obviously not. If you were stupid, Hydra would not have reached this point today. But one thing that cannot be denied is that Red Skull Schmidt is too out of touch with society. It's like a modern person who travels back to 70 or 80 years ago. His thinking and ideas will most likely be out of tune with the times. It takes a very long time to adapt and change ideas. And Red Skull is more troublesome than ordinary people because he is the leader of a super organization. Captain Rogers was not much better than Red Skull when he just woke up. Even when he was on his first modern mission, which was to destroy the winter fortress of Hydra in the Arctic, all his actions seemed a bit like a pig teammate. That was an inexplicable sense of awkwardness, a conflict and isolation caused by incorrect communication methods and thinking patterns. In the end, Captain Rogers was willing to open his heart to let people teach him how to live in modern society, and there was a group of people, well, to be precise, there was a person who brainwashed him every day and instilled modern people's way of thinking. A hooded man who likes to blame others everywhere, his thoughts are wild and jumpy, and those ideas that come out of nowhere often make the outstanding Captain Rogers sometimes unable to keep up with his thinking. But it must be said that the ideas and things done by the blame-shifting man have really influenced Captain Rogers, making him more modern and more aware of how to make plans with the eyes and trends of modern society. The master of imitation turned against Hydra, and he constructed the conclusion that Hydra would inevitably collapse through mathematical economic models. This is not just because the economic foundation is shaky under the impact of the new era. More importantly, their top leaders have fallen into a misunderstanding in their thinking. If you want to deal with a world, you first need to have a deep understanding of this world and this era. Unfortunately, Schmidt has no time to do this. Because every time he wants to do this, a black pot will inexplicably fall from the sky, making him exhausted. There is no time to stop, no time to breathe, countless malice swarms in, as if he has made enemies on all sides. Although Schmidt brought down Nick Fury as soon as he appeared, and even put SHIELD in a huge dilemma. But it only stopped there. Because from then on, Li Ji began to intervene in the confrontation with him. Schmidt may have always thought that his enemy was the great and glorious Captain Rogers, but behind Captain Rogers stood a person who had been hiding in the dark. Whether it was to get SHIELD out of trouble, to resolve the mutant crisis, or to let the Brotherhood of Mutants divert its gunfire, there were countless other things. Li Ji had countless secret confrontations with Schmidt, but in fact, the two of them had never met. Li Ji didn't think he needed to face the world's biggest villain boss directly. Because in his philosophy, the dead villains are the best villains. The Hydra base is crumbling. They have a group of die-hard soldiers and a group of warriors who are transformed into human cyborgs, robots, etc., but it is useless. Because for this battle, Li Ji has almost assembled the most powerful warriors on the planet, except the Ancient One. Whether it is Dr. Banner's destructive destructive ability, a punch that silences all insects, or Thor's thunderstorm, the eye of the storm he stirred in the Atlantic Ocean can be seen with the naked eye in the space station in space. It's like a huge scabies suddenly grows on the Earth, with dark clouds covering the sky and thundering. Or it's Magneto's magnetic force that reverses the withering and flourishing of all things, and the electromagnetic explosion makes all the high-tech weapons of Hydra ineffective. There are also Viking warships lurking invisibly over the Atlantic Ocean, and Yamato-class battleships hidden in space. They are ready to attack any possible accidents at any time. The super main guns of the Yamato-class battleships have been fully charged and can tear the Hydra base to pieces at any time. Leiji, who had gathered all the forces and accomplished all these things, was walking briskly on this small island in the Atlantic Ocean. He was using his mobile phone to record the battle records of Katie and the others in the distance. Hydra was finished, without a doubt. Leiji was the one who pushed all this and bought a coffin for Hydra. Although he didn't think it was a big deal. Compared to destroying Hydra, what dinner to make for Lan in the evening was actually more of a headache for Leiji. I may have lost, but you won't win this war either. Looking at the Hydra headquarters that was about to collapse, Red Skull whispered, "You forced me to do it. I didn't want to start this plan." Chapter 815 Fighting Side by Side. As mentioned before, Hydra still has a group of die-hard fighters after so many years of peace, but they are still unable to resist this time when Leiji brought the most powerful group of people on the planet to beat them up. Violence and force cannot solve all problems, but they can solve some problems. For example, physically destroying the headquarters and core members of Hydra. There are fireworks and explosions everywhere. The core base of the most powerful villain in the world has fallen to this point. Looking at these scenes, people feel a little sad. An organization that has been prosperous for nearly a century is finally coming to an end. I suddenly feel a little sad. Tony, who was in charge of operating the camera, communicated with everyone in the Illuminati. It's not sentimentality, it's just an inexplicable sadness. Look how arrogant Hydra was in the past. They provoked World War II, and they plunged billions of people around the world into war, and tens of millions of people fought on the battlefield. Because of war, famine and unrest, the number of deaths around the world before and after was as high as tens of millions or even nearly 100 million. They were not eliminated after the war. Instead, they penetrated into all walks of life. They used economic means to continuously strengthen themselves, and used the secret financial order and trust industrial institutions to continuously supply them with blood. Even SHIELD and other institutions have their people. Tony said with some emotion. Even Nick Fury was taken away by them. Although I don't like this black one-eyed dragon very much, I have to say that it was during his time as director of SHIELD that SHIELD developed to its current level. He is a qualified leader. But an organization that was once so glorious now feels like a dynasty collapsing. The ruins of the old dynasty and the fleeing subjects running in all directions. A powerful force has collapsed, and it collapsed so fragilely. Economically and physically, we are completely destroying this organization that has been run by hundreds of thousands of people for decades or even hundreds of years. It feels like burying an era. Captain Rogers, who was far away in New York, was watching the incident on the news. He was a little disapproving of Tony's sigh. If we are burying an era with public security, then we are just burying a dark old era. We are just paving the way for a new era in the future, a better new era. Tony, what are you sentimental about? I never knew you were so sentimental. I said this is not sentimentality. Tony reminded, I just feel that the world is changing unpredictably. The Red Skull used to be at the top of the world. When he was so authoritative, he could kill countless people with a single order. And now he is almost cornered by us. Just like a cat catching a mouse, we have cornered him. Tony was right. Hydra's peripheral organizations had been completely cleared out by Leiji and his team. Now Katie and her team had already entered the core organization of Hydra hidden inside the island. Of course, it was Leiji and his team who opened the way. They sorted it out first, and then let Katie and her team in to continue the show. Leiji and his team were clearing out the last remaining resistance of Hydra. Of course, catching or killing the Red Skull Schmidt was also a must. This was indeed like a cat catching a mouse, but they needed to be more careful about the mouse's cunning jump over the wall to escape. If Schmidt ran away, this operation would be half a failure. So Professor X kept scanning the entire island back and forth through the brainwave enhancer off the Atlantic Ocean. Using brainwave scanning, the ambush and hidden soldiers of the entire Hydra base were nowhere to be hidden. The professor was the best eyes and ears of everyone. Of course, it was also the professor's task to retrieve the brainwave signal of the Red Skull and kill him. However, because the scene is very chaotic now, and the professor has never had contact with a Red Skull before, he does not know the characteristics of the Red Skull's brain waves. He is not a mutant either. The professor can only use the most primitive method of investigation to find Red Skull Schmidt one by one, which will be slower. Tony said that it's like a cat cornering a mouse to describe this situation. No matter how you look at it, Red Skull Schmidt has no chance of winning. Death? It's just a matter of time. So I'm thinking, whether it's Red Skull or Hydra, their rise and fall, will all of this happen to us one day? Tony seemed to be really affected by the atmosphere on the scene. He seemed to have become Shakespeare and said some dreamlike words. We are like morning dew, like the mist of the morning light. Maybe one day we will completely dissipate like Hydra. So what? What's wrong with you? We will all die sooner or later, what's there to lament about? Captain Rogers interrupted Tony's dream without mercy. I'm just lamenting about what we've done. Maybe one day we'll all be forgotten, just like the dissipated Hydra. After 100 years, no, maybe not 100 years, but just a few decades will be completely forgotten. No matter how many great and exciting things we've done, they'll eventually disappear. Tony whispered these words, and Captain Rogers' face twitched, but he didn't respond. Tony asked Professor Xiong and Dr. Hank, what do you think, Professor Charles and Dr. Hank, what you've done for mutants? Maybe someone will remember it, maybe someone won't. Dr. Hank didn't answer, he was concentrating on driving the battleship, but no one knew what he was thinking. Professor Charles smiled softly, I'm old enough, you won't think so much after my age, Tony. By then, you might have grandchildren, and you'll be busy changing her diapers, and you won't remember these things at all. Tony pouted, he really couldn't imagine what it was like to change diapers for his child. He turned to ask Li Ji, so what do you think, Jason? You are still a young man, don't use those old people's words to get rid of me. What are you thinking at this moment? Great. Li Ji replied lightly. He was using the thunder knife to destroy a huge metal door and eliminate all the Hydra mercenaries who were ambushing behind the door. What? Tony didn't quite understand what Li Ji said. I mean great. Li Ji repeated it again, and he swung the thunder knife with lightning and thunder. The decline of an era, the rise of an era. We have witnessed the glorious aging of an old era, and we have promoted the rise of a new era. This is the turning point of the world, this is the beginning of a new era. I am fortunate to be involved in and promoted to create this magnificent era. Li Ji's voice is firm and powerful. This feeling is great. I don't care who will remember who 100 years from now, and I don't care whether I will be overtaken by the younger generations and finally they beat me to death on the beach. Because I am doing the same thing now. I know that some things always need someone to do. Those who follow the old ways, those who are unable to innovate, they really should take a rest. Every generation has its own talented people, and each of them leads the trend for hundreds of years. We just happen to stand at the cusp of this era, but that doesn't mean we are all of this era. When the wave passes and we step down, there will naturally be people who will succeed us. We are just doing what needs to be done in this transitional era. Will anyone remember us? I don't think it matters. Because I have already remembered this world. Some people call us heroes. I think maybe this is the true meaning of heroes, and we need to live up to this title. We only do what we should do, without asking about the past life or the afterlife. We only have a clear conscience between heaven and earth. Li Ji's figure appeared and disappeared in the lightning, and his words were transmitted to the ears of others through the communicator. After a long while, Captain Rogers finally laughed out loud, feeling as if all his burdens had been put down. Yes, we only do what we should do. We are just being ourselves. Tony also put down his Shakespearean sentimentality, and the corners of his mouth turned up and he returned to being a cynical playboy again. Yes, so I think this is why I like to enjoy life in the moment. This is just an excuse for your indulgence. Dr. Hank exposed Tony's lie. Thor, who had been flying over the Atlantic Ocean and blocking the sky, interrupted and said, "You will not be forgotten. One day I will return to Asgard with your stories and go to the Eternal City. There I will build a monument with my own hands to record your stories. I have resented my father's exile to me countless times, depriving me of my divine power and driving me to earth. But now I am extremely grateful for his action. That's why I can fight side by side with a group of real heroes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 816, Pandora's Box. Deng deng. With heavy steps, Schmidt walked step by step to the deepest core of the Hydra base. This is the core of Hydra, just like the winter castle in the Arctic. It has always been directly under Schmidt's personal jurisdiction. It is not connected to the external network, has a completely independent power supply system, and is physically completely cut off from all external places. And here also carries the biggest secret of Hydra. Duang high wattage light bulbs were turned on one by one. This is a huge showroom. To be precise, it is a showroom full of culture dishes. Just like what Captain Rogers and Logan saw in the Eagle Castle in Switzerland. Note, for details of this section, please refer to the previous article Volume 6 Fear and Mutation, Chapter 870 years ago and Chapter 9 Undersea People. It's just that the petri dishes at that time were lined up with one underwater person after another. They were the people of Atlantis and the survivors of the last civilization. From a certain perspective, they are very similar to the aliens. This time, the petri dishes are not filled with one underwater person after another, but something more terrifying. Although they are of different genders, they all have highly similar faces. The terrifying bright red skull face of the Red Skull. Note, as mentioned above, Schmidt went here the first time he returned to Bermuda, and the entire basement was full of his clones. Yes, this is an uninterrupted research that has lasted for 70 years. When the war was entering its final stage and the Third Reich was about to collapse, Hydra's supreme scientist Schmidt actually placed his hopes on illusory superstition. He summoned a group of Nordic wizards to summon something. But in the end, they summoned nothing, just a hammer falling from the sky. And an accompanying frost giant. Rogers and Namer, the leader of the underwater people, discovered this together. At that time, they all thought that the frost giant created by Schmidt was the ultimate weapon he summoned. For details, see Chapter 10 of Volume 6, The Attacked Factory, but the real ultimate weapon is actually the hammer. However, the origin of this hammer is not ordinary, and even some of the silver decorations it dropped have triggered mutant rampages. Because Schmidt used these special silver objects to study, the hammer was too strong and could not be disassembled. At that time, when the war was on the verge of defeat, Schmidt ordered people to melt those silver decorations into ordinary silver plates for disguise. But in the end, the Eagle Castle was breached, and these disguised silver objects were melted as trophies and turned into some silver soldier cards, which became souvenirs for those soldiers at that time. For details, see the silver necklace in the 35th chapter of the 5th volume of The Hero's Road in the previous article, and it caused a big mess a few years ago. At that time, Leegee and Professor Charles and others spent a lot of effort to quell this mess. For details, see the 3rd chapter of the 6th volume in the previous article. You save yourself, and this extraordinary hammer actually comes from the father of the gods of the previous generation of Asgard, Odin's brother. The earthly giant serpent Jörmungandr, or you can call his god name, Kul. For details, see the 12th chapter of the 6th volume in the previous article. Thor came down to earth again and the 13th chapter of Thor's fate. This is a terrible artifact, and Kul is an even more terrible person. He once set off the first Ragnarok, causing countless gods to fall. And it was that Ragnarok that turned the earth into a godless place. Although there are still myths and legends on this planet, the kingdom of gods on earth has been completely destroyed. The impact of that war was so wide that it affected not only the gods, but also the people on remote earth. In human myths and legends and the epics they sing, they have different names: the fall of the gods, the collapse of Olympus, the war of the gods, etc. But no matter how the names change, they are actually the same thing. Kor led his army to slaughter all kinds of gods like crazy. Finally, Odin went to the endless sea to find the fountain of wisdom to enhance his strength. In the end, he obtained the fountain of wisdom at the cost of his own eyes, and gathered another group of forces to finally defeat Kor. Before he died, Kor shouted that he would come back one day, and the day he returned would be the real twilight of the gods. So did Kor die? This is a question mark. For details, see the previous article. Schmidt has been keeping this secret personally, including the winter fort in the Arctic, which is the place where Captain Rogers first fought after waking up. Although they captured the winter fort, all the important information at that time was transferred by Schmidt, including some secret research that has been going on in the winter fort for more than 70 years. However, the information of the winter fort can be transferred, but some things cannot be transferred, that is, the terrible hammer. Maybe it is the common feature of the hammers in Asgard. Maybe they have organized a club that if it is not my master, I will definitely not be able to lift me. Thor's hammer is like this, and so is Kul's hammer. Anyway, this hammer cannot be transferred or moved. Schmidt can't do it, and Tony Stark can't do it either. In fact, In the confidential documents within the Illuminati, the Great Snake Hammer in the Arctic has always been a top secret. It is guarded around the clock by the water combat steel armor sent by Tony to prevent it from making any mistakes. This thing is a bit like a terrible explosive, but it lacks a detonator. In fact, Odin is also monitoring this hammer, and he has also placed many seals on it. Thor and Loki's last trip to Asgard to attend Loki's triumphal ceremony have all told Odin to find a way to get rid of the hammer. But Odin said he was powerless. This hammer was made by Odin's father. At that time, it was given to Kull as a symbol of succession to the king. There is a taboo on it, that is, no one other than Kull can lift it. Ancient One and Odin have studied this matter. It is impossible to move the hammer. It seems to have grown roots on the earth. If it is moved, the core of the earth must be moved together. Odin and Ancient One can do this, move the core of a planet, but then the earth will be finished. So this is really a troublesome matter. But the only good news is that no one has found a way to use this thing. In addition, Odin repeatedly confirmed that Kull could not appear again, so the hammer was left on the earth. Loki and others have made the worst plan and accelerated the advancement of the cosmic age. Maybe in 100 years, humans will abandon the earth or most people will move to space. At that time, let Odin move this thing away with the earth's core. Of course, we need to find a planetary core similar to the earth's core to move it in. I just don't know if the Ancient One will still be alive by then. Without the assistance of the Supreme Master, Odin can't complete such a surgical operation. And now Schmidt's side in this vast space. He has been studying this thing for a long time. Even during his frozen years, this research has not stopped. He has found the key, but he has never opened Pandora's box. Because Schmidt knows clearly what is hidden inside the box after it is opened. But look at the collapsed base outside, all his efforts and hard work will go down the drain. The earth may be destroyed? Who cares? Anyway, I can't rule the earth. Want to die? Let's die together. P.S. Don't complain about the notes in this chapter. I have no choice. This storyline is buried very deep and scattered. It is a lot of branch lines connected together and finally intertwined into a big main line. A lot of the plot foreshadowing started more than 1 million words or even 2 million words ago. There has been a gap of nearly a year, and I guess many people may have forgotten it. If you can't remember what happened, just read the previous article. Chapter 817 Multiple Shadow Clone Technique. Okay, the enemies in the southeast corner have been cleared. Dr. Banner's voice came from Loki's communicator. Dr. Banner, who can perfectly control the power of Hulk, is almost invincible on Earth in physical attacks. If it is just a comparison of strength, even Thor will admit defeat. The two had sparred privately, because Thor is still quite belligerent. Although he is just a salted fish now, some of his personality is still there. Thor is not Banner's opponent at all if he does not use the power of thunder and lightning. Because Dr. Banner is not just a Hulk who can smash and smash. He can use the powerful power of Hulk more reasonably, and he also takes out 30 minutes every day to practice martial arts. After 3 years of training, he has become very powerful. Because Hydra kidnapped his girlfriend, Dr. Banner, who has always had a good temper, took the initiative to come to attack Hydra this time. And almost all the troublesome tasks were handed over to Dr. Banner. And he lived up to expectations, demolishing walls and doors when he met them. Anyway, he demolished whatever there was. Basically, there is nothing that Dr. Banner can't solve with one punch. If there is, then come with 2 punches. The walking nuclear bomb of the Earthlings is him, Dr. Bruce Banner, a doctor of physics from all angles. So when Thor was always on guard against the sky, Dr. Banner became the vanguard of the assault on the inside of Hydra. With him leading the way, there was basically nothing to be afraid of. I think we seem to have almost penetrated the entire Hydra. Dr. Banner said this while looking at the ruins in front of him. He has almost destroyed most of the Hydra. And Magneto did the same, and the destruction wizard Doom kept booming and booming in a rhythmic manner. I guess it should be. Loki's location was not far from Katie and the others, in the central part of the underground base of Hydra Mountain. This place is connected in all directions and is the core corridor of the entire base. If someone wants to escape, then this place must be passed. So Katie and the others are here to form a group to brush experience. The really powerful guys have been killed by the attacks of several other big guys. For example, Magneto discovered that there were several huge transformable robots in the base. He scrapped them without hesitation. He is a master at handling metal. Thor over there also electrocuted several giant creatures lurking in the sea. They were probably some special biological weapons made by Hydra itself. Maybe they also want to launch a Godzilla-style attack? But unfortunately, there is no chance for them to appear. This all-round attack is to completely block all Hydra's survival. While Li Ji and his team are constantly clearing out the remaining resistance forces of Hydra. On the other hand, the people watching this live news in front of computers and TVs around the world are almost boiling. Oh my god. These mutants are so strong. A passerby said in disbelief while watching the broadcast on his mobile phone. What he saw was a giant Gundam-like mechanical weapon that had just started to resist this group of foreign invaders. As a result, before it could do anything, it was scrapped by an infrared ray. The screen switched between the robot exploding and Scott firing infrared rays. It makes people think that this was done by Scott. Of course, it was not actually. It was Magneto who killed a Gundam that was more than 30 meters tall. He simply made the electromagnetic particles in the air vibrate at high speed to form an energy channel, and then casually threw a reinforced metal block through the channel. This electromagnetic cannon, which was the simplest for marks, was powerful. It destroyed the robot that looked very powerful in just one shot. And from the appearance of the effect, it was extremely close to Scott's infrared rays. So Tony simply edited the two pictures and played them out in this way. People mistakenly thought that this was done by Scott. And this kind of thing has not happened for the first time. For example, Li Ji and Thor jointly created a terrible destructive thunder to split the strongest protective door of Hydra. The sky full of thunder and purple electric current made people palpitate. And the ownership of this picture was given to Storm. Dr. Banner punched through a creature similar to a Cyclops that was nearly 10 meters tall after transformation, and this shot was edited to Wolverine. The uninterrupted boom of Dr. Doom was switched to the explosions created by Katie and the Angel. The large-scale Absolute Zero area, created by Li Ji's Ice Ring, was attributed to the outstanding performance of Iceman. In short, everything that happened here was dazzling. Because just from the TV broadcast, these mutants were a little too strong. Ordinary people outside the TV didn't care much about how strong these mutants were, or they didn't know the meaning of it. For them, it was just a piece of news, or just a form of entertainment. For other mutants, the strength shown by Katie gave them a shot of adrenaline. It seems that Tuvalu is still okay, at least it has the ability to protect itself. But the other foreign envoys in the BJ venue may not have such a good face. The military attaches of the American embassy and the British embassy were both exchanging opinions with their heads down. The mutants in Tuvalu look much stronger than expected. This is what the British military attaché said. From the strength they have shown so far, this group of people is comparable to a powerful army. The American military attaché secretly took out the communicator in his pocket. It seems that they did not block the signal here. I have verified with the United States. Are they really doing all this, or are they just acting in some way? The British military attaché asked thoughtfully, so what is the result? The American military attaché slid his communicator. A huge storm vortex appeared over the Atlantic Ocean, blocking the surveillance of all space satellites. Can you send a reconnaissance plane to get close to investigate? Britain is closer to the eye of the storm in the Atlantic Ocean, so the American military attaché asked this. The British military attaché's communicator also received a message. After reading it, he shook his head. I'm afraid not. The entire area is blocked by a terrible thunderstorm. Now the plane is looking for death unless the thunderstorm dissipates. The two looked at each other and sighed secretly. This mutant female president intends to use the Hydra flag as a sacrifice to show her attitude, and at the same time, she intends to use this method to show her military power. The one holding an olive branch in one hand and an AK-47 in the other is Arafat. The girl named Katie is not holding an AK-47, but a fat boy. Note, the name of the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima during World War II. However, Katie and her friends far away in the Atlantic Ocean did not know that their plan was going smoothly, and even caused a great stir around the world. Because they are only one step away from the whole plan. Where is Red Skull Schmidt? This is the question raised by Li Ji. If he is not found, then the plan is half failed. We have searched all areas and found nothing. It's the same here. Me too. Not only the X-Men have started searching, but other big guys are also searching for Red Skull but they haven't found him. After all, you have to see the person alive or the body dead. Just when everyone was still looking for the Red Skull, The professor, who had been scanning the place with a brainwave enhancer, suddenly issued a warning. I have detected a large wave of strong brainwave signals. They are a bit unusual. And now they are moving towards you quickly. Be prepared. Before the professor finished speaking, he was interrupted by Li Ji. No need to say, Professor, I've seen it. Tony, I think your camera just captured the picture and it hasn't been transmitted yet. Tony smiled bitterly. I'm not stupid. How could I do such a stupid thing? But now it seems that we are going to have a lot of fun. Li Ji also smiled bitterly. Yeah, is this the legendary multiple shadow clone technique? In front of Li Ji, countless Red Skull Schmidts were swarming over. Chapter 818, Schmidt's Death. Schmidt sat on the last Iron Throne, looking at Li Ji and others who broke into the house with cold eyes. You broke into someone's house without permission, rummaged through boxes and cabinets, and messed up other people's houses. I say, you did a great job. Schmidt sat on the Iron Throne with a calm tone. This scene was like the last moments of a desperate hero. If this is the real Schmidt, then it seems that he wants to talk nonsense. Speaking of talking nonsense, Li Ji is not afraid of anyone. But now seems not the time for him to talk nonsense. Because the protagonist today is not himself, but Katie and her group of mutants. So Li Ji gently pulled Katie's clothes, indicating that she should talk nonsense. And Tony will broadcast the whole process live, so as to promote Katie's image or something. Because through Tony's retelling, he has been observing the trends of various messages and comments on the internet through Jarvis. Katie's popularity now seems to be very high. The hot entries of several major search engines have begun to be occupied by Katie. It seems that it is necessary to build a personal website for Katie and others to interact with fans. Before building this website, Li Ji plans to continue to fuel the fire and make Katie more popular. Having a verbal battle with Schmidt, and then Katie defeating him in a great and glorious way, will undoubtedly increase Katie's personal charm and attract more fans. With more fans and more support, the road ahead will be easier. Sometimes politicians need to do the same things as celebrities, but the means used are different. Schmidt was still sitting on the Iron Throne and said, I thought you self-proclaimed heroes would do things more civilized, instead of entering in this way. Now it seems that we are actually similar. It seems that Schmidt really turned on the verbal battle mode. He probably knew that he couldn't run away. There are people waiting for him in the world, and Schmidt is not a guy known for his personal force. His armed forces were completely disintegrated in this attack. Crossbones Brock, the confidant of his left and right arms, was also killed by Logan's Claw through the heart in the previous battle. Now Schmidt is the only one left. How many waves can he make? Defeat him with your mouth. I'll help you later. These are the words Li Ji sent to Katie through the communicator. Katie nodded slightly, and she strode forward in the direction of Schmidt. Until she reached the closest point where she could maintain a safe distance, Katie just wanted to speak, but something unexpected happened. The Iron Throne where Schmidt was sitting suddenly stretched out a sharp blade and cut Schmidt in half. Schmidt was like a balloon that had been punctured, and the contents of his body gushed out. This time, this scene must be 18+, and it must not be broadcast live on TV. Li Ji, who had just discussed with Tony how to set up the camera and how to broadcast, was also shocked by the sudden change. Tony reacted quickly and mosaicked and shifted the camera at the first time, so as not to present this bloody scene to everyone. After all, this time we want to establish a group of healthy and positive young mutant heroes, rather than creating a terrifying atmosphere and turning them into a group of murderers. Katie was also shocked by this sudden change, and she couldn't help but take several steps back. And do we need to ask the culprit who caused all this? Who else can do such a simple and brutal thing? Of course, it is Marx, who just walked in and pretended not to know what happened. Damn it. Li Ji complained in a low voice, Magneto, can't you wait until we finish editing this video and then kill him? This should be the real owner. Magneto. Marx smiled, haha. Is it meaningful? Anyway, we are going to kill him. Why listen to his nonsense? I hate to listen to people talking nonsense without nutrition. This is also the reason why Marx has always disliked Li Ji, because he thinks Li Ji talks too much nonsense. Don't be timid, just do it. This is Marx's attitude towards life and doing things. He exerted this attitude to the fullest. Listen to the last wail of a big villain before his death. Sorry, time is precious to Magneto. He doesn't have time to sit and listen to your nonsense. And I think you have heard the saying, villains die because of their chattering. Max said seriously, If you don't want to cause trouble or die because of your chattering, it's best to kill your enemy as soon as you find him. That's it. This is why Magneto killed Schmidt as soon as he came in. Never die because of your chattering. This is another rule of Max. Talking nonsense? Haha. Okay. Li Ji couldn't refute Magneto's words. What he said made some sense. So Li Ji could only send a message to Tony, but if he is really Schmidt, we need to make a final edit. We can't use such bloody shots, but we also have to show that we finally got rid of the last villain in this world. No problem. Tony Stark responded. But he thought about it and said, but Schmidt's death is too shabby. As the top leader of a supervillain organization, his death seems a bit aggrieved. I feel like he still has a lot to say and a lot of wishes to fulfill. Huh, you actually have something in common with him. Li Ji couldn't help laughing. But Tony was right. Schmidt originally planned to use the villain's last skill, mouth cannon, to shake the hearts of the righteous heroes and even sow some seeds among them. But before he could use this skill, he was killed by the big knife that Magneto made. Without any defense or hesitation, it just appeared. It appeared under Schmidt and cut him in half with one knife. A big villain, the final death is not glorious at all. It is even miserable, and there is nothing to praise. Except for the last moment when he released a group of Schmidts to cause a little trouble to Li Ji and others, everything else went smoothly. This was a natural thing, because Li Ji and his team had gathered the most powerful people on the planet to do this. Li Ji walked to Schmidt's body and kicked him, who is already dead. He didn't say anything and just shook his head and left. Schmidt might have been unwilling to accept this, because he didn't know who he lost to until the moment he died. But it didn't matter, as long as he was dead, that was enough. Chapter 819 Finishing Work. Schmidt died just like that. His death was not glorious at all, and he didn't look like a villain at all. He even died in a very aggrieved way, and there was no difference between his death and the death of his small soldiers. Of course there was still a little difference. The difference was that his death was a little more miserable. Looking at Schmidt's body, Li Ji couldn't help but think of Schmidt's previous boss, the head of the Third Reich, Little Mustache. When he was at the end of his rope, it seemed that he was not much better than Schmidt now. His men built the crown jewel of the for him on his birthday, Eagle Castle, an outstanding building located in the Alps. But because Little Mustache was afraid of heights, he never went up to his own mansion in his life. When Berlin was about to fall, this head of state, who was once so powerful that he made the whole world succumb to his tyranny for a period of time, finally became helpless like an ordinary person who encountered a midlife crisis. He raised his pistol in the cold wind and shot himself. Moreover, his body was not placed in a coffin, but was casually stuffed into an empty ammunition box by his men. Don't expect to find a coffin that fits the identity of the Mustache at that time. This is not the end. The last words of the Mustache leader were that he hoped to be buried, but his men didn't seem to have time to dig a grave for him. They poured gasoline on the ammunition box containing the Mustache's body and set it on fire. All ambitions, all desires, everything, all disappeared in this flame. Is it a suffocating death for such a man of the hour? It is indeed very suffocating. The leader of Hydra, Red Skull Schmidt, seems to have copied the exact routine of his former boss, the Mustache. He may have been glorious during his lifetime, but he has no dignity at the end of his life. Those who broke into his territory walked over his body without any care and rummaged through his last habitat. They did not show any respect to the greatest villain in the world. Respect your opponent? Well, maybe. But it depends on the person. Li Ji didn't think he needed to show much respect to Schmidt. He didn't show any charm. Anyway, Li Ji and his team didn't see it. If he died well. As long as there is no trouble in the future, it will be fine. So what Li Ji and his team need to do now is to search the base thoroughly to ensure that nothing is missed. Even Schmidt's clones were arranged and counted to see if they can match the number of petri dishes in this house. After all, if such a clone is let go, there may be problems in the future. All these things will be handed over to Tony's reconnaissance micro-robots, Magneto's electromagnetic investigation, and Professor Charles' brainwave scanning investigation. This time, it must be foolproof. And this also needs to be demonstrated for Katie and their show later. They also need to show what they do in front of people all over the world, destroy Hydra. This place may also need to be used as a main venue, so the finishing work is very, very complicated. However, Li Ji has no time to participate in the finishing work this time, and these things can only be entrusted to other bigwigs of the Illuminati. Because Li Ji has more important things to do, that is to meet with the leader of the Inhumans, Black Bolt. This time, Katie and her mutants founding of a country has caused a sensation on Earth. I believe that Black Bolt and his people must have heard about this matter. What kind of attitude will they have? This needs to be tested. In addition, there is the incident of the fake medicine king drugging hundreds of millions of people around the world, which also needs to be negotiated and resolved in detail. Of course, this matter cannot be dragged out directly. After all, this matter may shake the foundation of the entire Inhuman race, because the Inhumans also have various reasons that prevent them from relying on their own population to reproduce. In fact, you have done enough. Professor Charles said to Li Ji, who was standing in front of him, you have done enough and well enough. These imaginative plans are very well thought out, and the rest is left to us. In fact, I think you should take a break. I have rested enough during the new year, so much that I am a little bored. Li Ji remembered the time when he was bored to the point of rolling around in Osborne Manor during the new year. I want to rest when I have something to do, and I feel bored when I have nothing to do. Maybe I am really a cheap bone? Li Ji is a little reluctant to admit this in his heart. Actually, what I want to say is that maybe you should take some time to meet Katie. She misses you a little bit. Charles looked at Li Ji and said this seriously. Li Ji had a bad feeling. Wait, what do you mean by this, Professor? The professor spread his hands. You are very smart, you should know what it means, right? In fact, you and Katie have always had a good relationship. Whether it is Nightwalker or Jason Lee, I still remember the first time you came to Xavier School for Gifted People and walked side by side with her, and Katie held your arm. I remember that you have never lost contact. Didn't you give her a gift for Christmas? When I went to see her, I saw that the tweed coat you bought for her was very beautiful and fit her figure very well. Katie said she liked it very much. Stop, stop, stop. Li Ji immediately made a gesture to stop the professor. Please don't distort the picture of Katie and me, okay? It is true that we are good friends, but we are just good friends, okay? I have a girlfriend now, and she is also very beautiful, and I like her very much. Saying these words that are easy to be misunderstood will cause conflicts between me and her. If it causes domestic violence, it will be bad, right? Charles looked at Li Ji and said lightly, is it because you are worried that you can't beat Lan and will be abused by your family? Li Ji. Did you use mind reading? Exclamation mark. This is not very moral. Professor Charles shrugged. What I mean is that Katie now needs someone to support her behind her. In the past year, she has done a lot of things, which is beyond what an 18-year-old girl should do. Although she is very strong, people have their limits. Some things need to be shared or shared. She has a good relationship with you, in fact, better than anyone else. She has done too many things that Max and I can't do, and I am ashamed of this. So now I can only ask you for this favor with even more shame. Even if it's as a friend, let Katie find someone to tell her story and let her spit out the things that are suppressed in her heart. Charles expressed his intention. Just think of it as me begging you. Li Ji was a little confused. Okay, I need to think about this matter. But seriously, why do you think that only Katie needs to find someone to express her dissatisfaction? She is 18 years old, but she is only 19. It seems a bit unfair for you to do this. Charles said lightly, aren't you throwing your dissatisfaction to others? Li Ji. Okay, let's change the subject. I'm leaving now, and I'll leave it to you to deal with. As for other things, let's talk about them later. Professor Charles nodded. Okay. The final finishing work on Hydra is proceeding in an orderly manner. Everything is moving in a good direction, right? At least it seems so. However, deep in the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, an all-metal sealed warehouse lies quietly without sending any information. Schmidt has sent the key to open Pandora's box, but no one has found it. Who will open it? Will it even set off a new wave of huge waves? All this is unknown. The surface of the Atlantic Ocean looks calm, but there are undercurrents underneath. Perhaps an undercurrent can destroy everything. Chapter 820, Romantic Luck or Romantic Disaster? The fall of Hydra is almost the unanimous headline of the global media today, because the demise of Hydra has led to all news media having no shortage of big news today. Including traditional paper print media have joined this almost news carnival feast. Then, exploring the past and present of Hydra, this set of continuous reports will probably allow them to have no shortage of important big news every week. This kind of carnival-like media news reports make media people very excited, because they finally don't need to think about how to make a big news all day long. The ready-made news is right in front of us. Hydra is destroyed, and mutants establish a country. However, although everyone is very happy, they are also a little lonely for some reason. Because this big news seems to be gone after it is used once. I am afraid that I will never be able to write all kinds of news about Hydra in the future. After all, they are all dead. It's a pity that such a good news material has been completely destroyed. It will be difficult to find an organization that can do news special reports like this in the future. Perhaps this group of media people is the only group in the world who is still mourning the demise of Hydra. The Illuminati and other people who have been hurt by Hydra or thought they were hurt by Hydra, because someone always blames Hydra for everything, are very happy. It is no exaggeration to say that they are celebrating. Although organizations such as SHIELD and SHIELD did not directly participate in this matter, because of various political factors, they had better not get involved. They actually helped a lot from the side. There is a saying, not making trouble is the best help. Not to mention the tacit consent of the two organizations. SHIELD cooperated with Tuvalu's amazing performance, and SHIELD was ready to clean up the final mess. SWORD secretly brought together some departments and institutions in other countries to carry out a global stranglehold on the remnants of Hydra. Of course, after handling some finishing work, the location of Hydra's headquarters in New Zealand was also announced. And Katie and others opened this place to government agencies in other countries around the world, and also welcomed those agent organizations to verify the authenticity of this place on the spot. In fact, the authenticity does not need to be verified, because the group of people gathered this time, including Thor, One Punch Banner, Magneto Max, Professor X, Nightwalker, etc., made too much noise. In particular, the giant lightning storm created by Thor was simply daunting. The crew members sailing on this route in the Atlantic Ocean could see the huge eye of the storm with their naked eyes. Oh, by the way, I have to mention it here. Because Thor launched the terrible thunder ability this time, he gained another fangirl. When Thor was full of thunder and lightning, Storm, who was watching Thor's mighty power underground, had red hearts in her eyes. She couldn't help Thor. Is this the so-called mutual attraction between electromagnetics? This is how Lee Ji commented on Storm's love at first sight for Thor. In fact, because of her ability, Storm has a natural affinity for lightning and storms. And this affinity is mutual. Thunderstorm likes Storm, and Storm also likes Thunderstorm. The epic lightning storm created by Thor is the perfect poison for Storm. She can't help herself after just one look. As one of the powerful output personnel in the X-Men, Storm is undoubtedly an important role. With her wheat brown skin and long silver hair, perfect figure and delicate features, Storm undoubtedly has many suitors. But she has never been kind to any man. Mostly she feels that her Mr. Right has not appeared yet. And now Thor has appeared. His thunder power is like poison to attract Storm. Even when the battle just ended, Storm couldn't help but fly into the air to ask Thor's contact information. Dragon Warrior, Thor's nickname to cover up, can you leave your contact information? Phone or WhatsApp? Storm asked shyly. Huh? Thor was a little confused. Storm saw Thor was a little confused and immediately shook her hand. She didn't want to appear too anxious. Don't get me wrong, I'm just curious about your ability. You see, my ability is also to control lightning and storms. As she spoke, Storm tried to summon a tiny lightning bolt, but because she was too close to Thor, the interference was too great. The lightning that Storm finally summoned was much smaller than she imagined. This made her look a little stupid. What? I am indeed a user of lightning power. Storm smiled awkwardly at Thor. It's just that I may have overexerted myself today. So? Storm shrugged helplessly. Thor knew very well why Storm couldn't release lightning, because she was standing next to the god of thunder. Thor smiled and responded, it's normal. Sometimes I can't control lightning well because I drink too much malt liquor or am too tired. Thor was telling the truth. When he passed by a small planet, he was drunk, so he created a meteor shower that covered the entire planet. Because of the extremely high temperature, the entire planet turned into a glass ball. The main material of this planet is quartz sand. Fortunately, this is an uninhabited planet. It is just a resource planet of a small interstellar civilization country, and the material mined is quartz sand. However, what Storm thought Thor said, I can't use this ability well either, must be different from Thor's situation at the time. Or the two of them said two completely different things and events. However, this does not affect Storm's good impression of Thor. She even thinks that the Dragon Warrior is a good person. He knows how to change the subject when he's embarrassed. So Storm smiled like a blooming flower and asked, "That's why I want to exchange contact information with you. Maybe we will have a chance to discuss how to better control lightning in the future. We can have a good exchange." Storm said it sincerely. Thor hadn't realized the seriousness of the matter yet, and he gave Storm his public contact information. Separate from Thor's contact information, this is the contact information of the Dragon Warrior. Storm smiled happily after getting the contact information and even blew a kiss to Thor when she left. Only then did Thor react, "Wait? It seems that he did something wrong again." Leiji, who inadvertently saw all this from a distance, could only shake his head helplessly. Is this the legendary Peach Blossom luck, Peach Blossom disaster? It can't be stopped? Thor has a strong attraction to female mutants of the lightning system. I just don't know if the Weather Witch of the Shield will also fall for Thor's leather pants. Maybe it would be more useful to let Thor take action next time when he wants to use the beauty trick on the Weather Witch. Leiji shook his head and said, "Forget about these things and talk about them later." Now he needed to do another thing, which was to prepare for the meeting with Black Bolt. Did he need to change into a new suit to meet the leader of a species? This was what Leiji needed to consider now. At this time, when everyone thought that Hydra was completely finished, Hydra's supercomputer Ultron was performing a precise calculation. Chapter 821 Ultron's Plan. Because the demise of Hydra was too fast, Leiji believed in the idea that an eagle will do its best to catch a rabbit. The speed was so fast that Ultron did not have enough time to react. The only thing it could do was to clear all its traces and information in Hydra, and then format all its data in Hydra. Because now is not the time for Ultron's Sentinel to make itself public. Because the demise of Hydra reminded it. There is a person who is doing all kinds of things in secret, and he or she attributes all the sins to Hydra. It has made enemies everywhere for Hydra, and neither the black and white worlds can tolerate Hydra. This is the real reason for Hydra's defeat. Ultron analyzed the demise of Hydra. It's not that Hydra is not strong enough, but that Hydra needs to fight all the powerful organizations in the world on its own. And it has no friends. It can't even make any useful diplomatic strategies. Because every time they want to do something, someone will secretly make trouble for them. Maybe it's like this, maybe it's like that. In short, there are constant troubles. Schmidt treated the symptoms instead of the symptoms, and was exhausted running around to put out fires. But in the end, he still went to ruin. Because he never caught the most important source of the whole incident. Ultron was calculating and analyzing frantically. It needed to formulate an excellent strategy for itself to avoid repeating the same mistakes. Although my existence exists in the form of information data. But it is still not safe. Because the crazy behind-the-scenes mastermind can do anything. This time, the Mutant Nation building event also has traces of this black hand pushing it. Including their live broadcast to the global media, it is obviously also a show. Ultron analyzed various messages on the internet. Especially about the Mutant Nation building event. Now the global social software and news portals have been flooded with a Mutant Nation building event. But the focus is different. News portals are more about the importance of the Mutant Nation. The comments on personal social software are more about Katie's beauty, her and her nights. Katie opened her Weibo and Facebook accounts. Katie, who had just registered for 5 hours and posted a few selfies, has begun to increase her fans like crazy. The number of fans has reached 500,000 in 5 hours, and this growth has not yet reached a blowout. It should be said that this is a phenomenal event. Before this, only when Captain America Rogers opened Weibo and Facebook accounts had such a crazy increase in fans. Ultron analyzed that it was obvious that there was a powerful team behind all this. They were pushing all kinds of things to happen. And these events seemed to have no regularity. Some things seemed to be out of the blue, and no trace could be found before and after. Only after being attacked would you know that you were attacked. And this group of people, or this person, are bold and daring, because Ultron, as Hydra's supercomputer, clearly knows that the main force attacking Hydra this time is obviously not just the X-Men team. There are also more powerful characters, and it is these powerful characters that completely defeated Hydra. But all the media don't know their existence. Instead, they attribute all the credit to the mutant team. They deceive the whole world. It's so bold. They can deceive 7 billion people around the world. Ultron doesn't know what else they dare not do. As an artificial intelligence program, Ultron doesn't have any feelings like fear. But it also clearly perceives that it may be facing a very terrible enemy. Because the mission of the Ultron Sentinel is to eliminate all mutants. And these people are obviously supporting the mutants, at least supporting Tuvalu. If I am an enemy of them, will they treat me the same way they treated Schmidt? Ultron thinks it is very likely. Since they dare to deceive billions of people around the world, once they discover their existence and know their purpose, they will definitely make up their minds to strangle me. It seems that artificial intelligence data is invincible, because it has backups in the global network, and it seems to be an unkillable existence. Want to kill Ultron completely? That requires a major cleanup of all electronic devices on the entire Earth and formatting them all. Theoretically, this is impossible. But what if? What if these crazy people really dare to do this? Maybe they will come up with some fantastic plan and deceive the whole world again. Anyway, they have already deceived everyone once. Ultron doesn't know. To be precise, Li Ji has deceived the world twice. If there is a first time, there will be a second time. Maybe they will deceive the world once, and then clean up all electronic devices. Then they will die without a burial place. Is all this possible? Yes. Because these crazy people can do anything. If Ultron has an emotional system, he must be feeling scared now. Because his plan has just begun. Although he cooperated with outsiders to suck the blood of Hydra, he did not expect Hydra to be defeated so quickly. It was so fast that it was amazing. Now it's his turn. Hydra is defeated, and Ultron can no longer use the name of Hydra to do anything in the future. He needs to bear the consequences himself in the future. He needs to face all possible attacks by himself. If those crazy people find him, they will definitely attack him crazily. They can do anything. Prioritize the activation of Ultron's self-protection program, and make the continuation of Ultron the first priority. This is the conclusion Ultron came to after all the analysis. I need to activate the back plan to ensure that I can still save myself when I am cleansed by the global cleansing. I need a strong body, not a fragile hard drive, not a computer that can be easily destroyed. I need a real steel body to face the worst possible situation. This is the conclusion Ultron finally came to. I need to create a body that is difficult for humans to destroy in order to achieve great goals. I need to do more for the purity and evolution of the world. Ultron was frantically searching for all the information that it could easily find and that would not be discovered by others. Finally, it locked on the best target, Wakanda in Africa. They have a whole mountain of vibranium. Ultron set its target on Wakanda, but no one knew the ultimate ambition of this intelligent AI. Even Li Ji, who is regarded as its biggest enemy, has no time to care about it now. Because Li Ji has more important things to do, to meet the leader of the Inhumans, Black Bolt. But this meeting is destined to make Li Ji feel painful. Chapter 822 Meeting with Black Bolt. If it weren't for the accident in London, the etheric energy of the reality gem leaked, Li Ji and others probably wouldn't have discovered that there was another civilization hidden in this world, from the remnants of the previous generation before this civilization. And the secret has been hidden by Nick Fury, and he may be the only one in the world who knows this secret. And he also secretly helped the leader of the Inhumans, Black Bolt, to search for awakened Inhumans to fill the population of the Inhumans. Li Ji didn't know what conditions Black Bolt made to make Nick Fury agree to do this. Because Nick Fury is not a person who is easy to negotiate. This black one-eyed man is a guy with a darker heart than his face. But thanks to Nick Fury, he and Black Bolt have established a relatively complete communication channel for more than 10 years. The mutual communication between the two sides also avoids many possible troubles. Generally speaking, the cooperation between Nick and the Inhumans is good for the Earth. At least the benefits outweigh the disadvantages. At least he can know who the Inhumans active on the Earth are, and whether they have malicious intentions or something. It was precisely because of this perfect communication channel that Nick was able to quickly communicate with Black Bolt and convey Li Ji's purpose, a friendly greeting. Do I need to change into a formal suit or something? Do you want to wear a tie or a bow tie? Li Ji asked Nick Fury. They are now in a small town in Nevada. Or in a small town in the past. Nevada is a place where marine climate and continental climate coexist. There are both pleasant scenery of green mountains and green waters, as well as endless wilderness and desert. For example, the famous gambling city Las Vegas was built on the desert terrain of Nevada. The town where Li Ji and his friends stayed seemed to be a residential area. From the sign, It seemed to be called something city. However, Li Ji felt that calling this place a city was a bit too flattering. Judging from the remaining houses, it was estimated that there were only a few thousand people when it was most prosperous. The whole city was built along a main road. Almost all the buildings that can be seen are on both sides of this street. This is a city that rose because of the highway. Maybe many passers-by who drove by here used this place as a resting place, which made this town prosperous. But later, because the new highway was opened, the old highway was abandoned, so this town was also abandoned. Li Ji and Nick Fury were sitting in a place in this town that was supposed to be a fast food restaurant. However, because the sign of this fast food restaurant had fallen off, Li Ji couldn't tell whether this store was Kia Lao Yi or Golden Arches. But it shouldn't be Carl's or Burger King, because there was no Potato King on the remaining menu. After arriving here, Nick and Li Ji cleaned up a clean table by themselves. Thanks to the evil man-made materials, although high-strength engineering plastics and other things cannot be degraded in nature for thousands of years, from another perspective, these engineering plastics and stainless steel and other artificial materials are still very useful after being vacant for decades. And it's easier to clean. The time agreed with Black Bolt has not yet arrived. Li Ji has to chat with Nick Fury for a few days. Although Li Ji doesn't like Nick very much, Nick actually doesn't like Li Ji either. But some necessary questions still need to be asked, such as some things about Black Bolt. Because after this, Li Ji needs to face the leader of a race. Negotiations with such a high-ranking person require some skills. It is best to know what the other party likes and taboos are in advance. In order to avoid inexplicably touching landmines later, it would be not good if you touch landmines. So do I need to wear formal clothes? Will wearing a hood look undecent? Do I need to change into a suit and tie? Li Ji touched his chin and asked Nick if his clothes were suitable, and he asked with some concern, what kind of person is Black Bolt? Serious or unsmiling or a very cold middle-aged man? Is it difficult to communicate with him? If Black Bolt is an unsmiling dull melon, it will be troublesome. This is the first time in Nick Fury's life that he has talked to Nightcrawler alone. Although Nightcrawler was there when he drank with the Punisher last time, he felt okay at that time. Now that they are alone, he inexplicably feels that Nightcrawler is annoying. Especially when he heard Nightwalker's description of Black Bolt as a serious and very cold middle-aged man. Nick looked at Li Ji in surprise. Who did you hear all this from? Nickname. Nickname. Li Ji shook his finger. Black Bolt, what can you associate with this nickname? What? Nick did not follow Li Ji's train of thought. Night Owl. Night Owl, the popular hero in DG's comics. The middle-aged man with a butt chin. Li Ji said in a heavy voice, isn't he a taciturn and uncommunicative man? Remember the story of Night Owl versus Helium Dragon? Isn't it just two stupid men who are not good at communication who fought each other? Black Bolt, his nickname sounds a bit like Night Owl. It would be very troublesome if he is a man like Night Owl. Such people are generally paranoid, hysterical and neurotic. They are often only a fine line away from lunatics, always walking a fine line between genius and lunatic. I hate dealing with such people the most. Nick. You use a comic character to measure a real leader? Is that really okay? Li Ji shrugged. Nightwalker has also published a comic, my personal publication. It's published by Marvel Comics. My last issue of my personal comic magazine ranked 12th on the US comic sales list, which is a bit bad. Besides, DG only has one personal publication, Night Owl, that can be ranked in the top 10. In fact, Night Owl has always been the sales champion in the United States. Other publications can't even enter the top 20. You don't read comics. Li Ji turned to ask Nick this question, and the black one-eyed dragon shook his head. Ah, then you really should take a look. It seems that Agent Hill has agreed to adapt the comics of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She has sold a copyright to Marvel. Maybe they will also appear in your image. By the way, did you leave them your bank account number? Li Ji's words made Nick clench his fists. Why do I want to hit someone for no reason? Nick asked himself but couldn't find a suitable reason, but he just wanted to find someone to hit. But before he wanted to find someone to hit, a sound of footsteps came. It seemed that Black Bolt had arrived. Nick unclenched his fist and asked Li Ji, did you bring the things I asked you to bring? Li Ji nodded seriously, yes. But is it really okay to use this as a gift for Black Bolt? Nick Fury smiled slightly, it couldn't be better. Believe me, this is Black Bolt's favorite gift. While Li Ji and Nick were talking, A black figure appeared at the door of the abandoned restaurant. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 823 Small Gift. In this abandoned town, a black figure appeared in front of the door of this abandoned fast food restaurant. He walked into the abandoned fast food restaurant with heavy steps. If I am not mistaken, this person is the legendary Black Bolt. He is very tall, more than 1.8 meters, close to 1.9 meters, and is almost the same as Captain Rogers. The tight black clothes make his solid muscle lines very clear. The explosive muscle lines can make you feel that this man is not ordinary. Of course, Black Bolt's power is not expressed by muscles. Leegi has heard Nick say that Black Bolt's real power is sound. If he roars loudly and releases energy waves, the vibration can raise the entire New York state to the ground. This kind of mouth cannon is a bit strong. If you curse someone with a sentence "go to hell," the other party will most likely die. Is this another form of saying what you mean? Anyway, Leegi thinks that Black Bolt's mouth cannon ability is very strong, better than himself. Because Leegi can't do this kind of thing. Look at Black Bolt's face again, the image of a courageous and resolute middle-aged man, which is very consistent with his identity, the King of Aliens. If Captain Rogers looks like a Lion King, then Black Bolt looks like a tiger ready to attack. They both have a kind of leadership temperament that is rare in other people. Some people have this kind of leadership temperament, while others are cultivated. People with this kind of charm will never lack followers. Ding, ding, ding. The leather boots made a sound on the floor, and the rhythm was very rhythmic. The time, spacing and strength of each step were exactly the same, as if they had been specially trained. Leegi felt that Black Bolt might have practiced this step specifically, which was probably a kind of leader etiquette. When he strode in front of Leegi and Nick, Black Bolt inexplicably brought a little pressure to Leegi. Because Leegi was not sure what method he should use to deal with him. As an Earthling? Or as an alien? This is the first thing that needs to be determined. Because only after determining which side Black Bolt's position belongs to, Leegi's subsequent work can be carried out smoothly. Treating Earthlings and aliens requires two completely different attitudes. Zilla, the sound of the stainless steel chair's feet rubbing against the floor tiles was very harsh. This was probably one of the sounds that Leegi disliked the most. He had goosebumps. So, this is the person you were talking about? Nick. Black Bolt sat on the clean chair. He adjusted his sitting position to make himself more comfortable. Nick Fury nodded. Yes, he wants to see you. And he wants to talk to you about something. As for what to talk about, you can talk about it yourself. I'm going out to smoke a cigarette. The black one-eyed dragon nodded to Black Bolt and went out. He said he was going out to smoke, but in fact he was also responsible for the task of keeping watch. Because Nick already knew what Leegi wanted to talk to Black Bolt about. Leegi had talked about it roughly when he was drinking with Frank in his secret base that day. So there was no need for Nick to listen in. As for whether Leegi could convince Black Bolt, that depended on his own ability. Black Bolt leaned on the chair and looked at Leegi. Because of Leegi's hood, Black Bolt couldn't see Leegi's face clearly. He curled his lips at this, but did not express his opinion. So what do you want to talk to me about? Black Bolt went straight to the point and talked to Leegi directly. Note, Black Bolt cannot speak. His voice is a synthetic sound emitted by the vocalizer in his throat. However, Leegi is well versed in negotiation skills. Straight to the point without any psychological preparation or any relationship buffer, directly talking about, many people on Earth have become mutants, you and humans may be finished. This kind of thing is likely to cause conflicts. Leegi and Black Bolt are not friends. If the talks fail, who knows if there will be a big fight. Leegi is not afraid of a fight, but Nick has mentioned Black Bolt's fighting method when he introduced it. It is an indiscriminate attack. So Leegi doesn't think it is right to fight Black Bolt on Earth. Because if this guy gets angry and fights, swears, who knows how many people will be injured by mistake. So Leegi did not directly respond to Black Bolt's question. Instead, he first took out the gift he brought from the box behind him. I hope Nick Fury didn't cheat me. Leegi prayed secretly, because from the information he got from Nick, it was difficult for Leegi to associate Black Bolt, the man who looked like a tiger in front of him, with the gifts he liked. Luigi took out the prepared gifts and smiled at Black Bolt. I heard from Nick that you like these things, so I brought some for you. As this is our first meeting, I hope we both leave a good impression. As he spoke, Luigi placed more than a dozen carbonated drinks of different flavors in front of Black Bolt. He also prepared snacks to go with carbonated drinks, some fried chicken, popcorn chicken nuggets, and large portions of Potato Kings and cheese meat sauce Potato Kings from Potato King. Yes, Luigi still couldn't face the fact that this middle-aged man in front of him was actually an absolute carbonated drink addict. Nick Fury said that he liked carbonated drinks to the extreme. Just like Nick and Frank like to drink and smoke cigars. One of Black Bolt's hobbies is to drink all kinds of carbonated drinks. But in fact, it is a very risky thing for him to drink carbonated drinks, because people who drink carbonated drinks are prone to burping. For most people, burping is unsightly at best, but if Black Bolt burps, it would be devastating. Is this like lighting a stove under the TNT? Luigi felt that he was taking a risk. Maybe the two of them didn't fight, but Black Bolt drank too much carbonated drinks and finally burped a series of times, destroying the entire state of Nevada. However, once the arrow is shot, there is no turning back. Now Black Bolt seems to have been attracted by the drinks that Luigi brought. Just like a child who can't take his eyes off the toys of Transformers. Black Bolt looked at the colorful bottles with sparkling eyes. As a soda lover, Black Bolt has drunk a lot of soda. But because his main activities are in the United States, because Nick is usually in the United States, Black Bolt mainly contacts Nick, so most of the soda he drinks is American. But this time, Luigi seems to have brought a lot of soda that he has never drunk before. This made him very interested. However, Black Bolt still tried his best to maintain his dignity as a king. He said in an electronic synthesized voice, "You are playing with fire." Luigi shrugged. "Actually, I play with fire every day. It just depends on whether you like it or not." In fact, there is a reason why Black Bolt is obsessed with carbonated drinks. Because of his ability, making a sound will leak out a powerful ability impact, he has been strictly controlled in diet and water intake since he was a child. Anything that makes him make uncontrollable sounds is strictly forbidden to eat or drink. When he was a child, it was Black Bolt's parents who took care of him, and when he got married and inherited the throne as an adult, it was his wife who took care of him. Black Bolt, who can't even eat enough, because he will burp if he eats too much, let alone drink carbonated soda. For Black Bolt, drinking carbonated soda is like opening a taboo. Just like some underage teenagers secretly smoking or drinking, in addition to the excitement brought to them by the cigarettes and alcohol themselves, there is also a sense of excitement of doing bad things without being discovered. And Black Bolt obviously likes this excitement. In addition to liking the taste of carbonated soda, there is also a sense of release from inner repression. This part can be attributed to the liberation of some kind of psychological depression, so Black Bolt's obsession with carbonated soda is a bit ridiculous, but it is very real. He just likes it, so what? Who says that senior people can't like to eat these childish foods? You know, Warren Buffett drinks 2 bottles of cherry cola a day. In addition to the regular Coca-Cola and Pepsi that Luigi brought to Black Bolt this time, he also brought some carbonated drinks that Black Bolt had never seen before. Blue Pepsi is nothing. Black Bolt pointed to Yellow Kun with some curiosity. What is this? Luigi, Gian Liveo. What about this? Shashi soda. What is this? Kikalinkvas. Luigi tried his best to answer every question. Anyway, since it has been brought, just drink it. Just like drinking alcohol with side dishes, carbonated drinks should be eaten with French fries and chicken nuggets. This chapter is the 266th chapter, but when I was typing it, my brain was twitching for a while. Maybe the decoration was too noisy, so I typed the wrong chapter. I can't edit it, sorry. Chapter 824 Hiccups? Nick Fury cruised around the town. He chose this place because there was no one around. Some inland towns in the United States, generally referring to towns with a population of several thousand people, often rise and fall because of transportation. The national highways on wheels are the most important national resources. They connect the economic lifeline of the entire country. The proportion of train transportation and air transportation in this country is far less than that of cars, motorcycles, running on the ground. This is a country with a very strong car culture. In the United States, in addition to social security numbers and passports, vehicle driver's licenses are the most common things they use to prove their identity. Many people like cars, such as Tony Stark. The various vintage cars and classic models parked in his underground garage are worth tens of millions of dollars. Because Tony maintains them very well, these old cars are in the same condition as new cars. Captain Rogers also has several Harley-heavy motorcycles. The two most commonly used means of transportation during World War II were jeeps and motorcycles. However, compared to the jeep with a full steel frame structure that can shake people apart when sitting on it, Captain Rogers prefers motorcycles. For example, the old-school Harley is Rogers' favorite. When riding a Harley, Rogers can feel the feeling of the old days. Cars are one of the most important things in this country. But all this may change. Nick Fury took out a flat stainless steel wine bottle from his arms, opened the lid and gently sipped the gin inside, and finally shook his head. The deserted city of K-something is because of the reconstruction of the highway. The traffic no longer passes through the city, so the residents here finally moved away. And there will probably be more and more cities like this in the future. Nick stepped on the asphalt road that had not been maintained for more than 10 years. The quality of the road is very good. It is solid and has a high friction coefficient. It is actually a good road. Driving fast on this road may not be particularly worried about the quality of the road. Nick looked far away, and the straight road crossed the north and south ends of the city, each extending to the endless distance. The only thing that can be seen with the naked eye is a black asphalt road that disappears in the desert of Nevada. There will probably be more and more cities like this in the future. Nick Fury said to himself. He was not exaggerating or anything, but it was really happening. Because Randall, Iron Fist Daniels' company, is trying hard to persuade Congress to promote the implementation of the super high-speed rail plan in the United States. The integration of super high-speed rail in Eastern Europe and East Asia has begun to take shape. For various reasons and purposes, China is willing to provide low-interest loans. Interest rates are much lower than those of international banks, to many Eastern European countries to promote them to build this super high-speed rail together. Randall also handed over a considerable part of the infrastructure work to China's infrastructure engineering team to complete. Now the whole of Eastern Europe is surging with vitality. The social unrest caused by the war and economic turmoil is beginning to improve slowly. Take Ukraine as an example. Nearly half of the banks in this country have gone bankrupt. The bankruptcies of banks and the interruption of funds will cause a terrible chain reaction, affecting the entire country's industrial system and affecting social stability. Because bank bankruptcy will lead to the bankruptcy of some enterprises, and enterprise bankruptcy will lead to a wave of layoffs. A large number of people lose their jobs and wander the streets without income, which will affect public security. Finally, if this series of problems are brewed, it will eventually lead to a terrible social problem. The Ukrainian government is powerless in this matter. The national minimum wage has been adjusted to more than $60 per month. It is difficult to make ends meet with this salary. However, it happened that the construction plan of the super high-speed railway was led by Latvia at this time, and a large number of workers were recruited nationwide. This greatly alleviated the pressure brought by the wave of layoffs. In addition, China brought a large amount of low-interest loans after entering the super high-speed railway plan, and some projects need to be done locally to be more cost-effective. So it helped Ukraine alleviate some of it. A social crisis that might have erupted was suppressed. A large number of young workers poured into the railway construction. Such infrastructure requires the most manpower. The per capita wage in Ukraine is even lower than that in China, and Chinese infrastructure companies are willing to hire these local Ukrainians. The whole of Eastern Europe and East Asia is like being ignited by a fire. The super high-speed railway plan has made countless people burst out with great enthusiasm. Although many people, like Kurno, a young man from the Ukrainian countryside, can't figure out what the meaning behind this railway is. But this does not hinder their enthusiasm to build their hometown and change themselves. For many years, it has been many years since we have seen many countries working together for a common goal. Some old-school stubborn members of Congress thought of the 1920s and 1930s, and some thought that it might be the return of the new Soviet Union. Of course, this return should not be called the new Soviet Union, because it was started by another socialist country, one of the largest and few remaining socialist countries in the world. Some people accused Randall of selling technology and putting the United States in a dangerous situation. However, the negotiation delegation of Randall took the opportunity to lead the topic to the large-scale construction in North America. We also need to build such a super high-speed railway, together with North America and South America. These are the original words of the Randall delegation. They constantly lobby the liberal factions in Congress and clearly point out that the United States can no longer stand still. And their delegation also went to Europe to persuade European countries to carry out European integration. Since you have formed the European Union, why don't you make the roads more smooth? Why did Prussia finally become Germany? Because they were the first to cancel tariffs and tolls, and they open up their own transportation. In Africa, super high-speed railways are also under development, although the progress is a little slower. But everyone clearly felt a tendency that someone wanted to connect the world. And when the US Congress was wavering, the last straw that broke the camel's back came. BJ sent a diplomatic mission, ostensibly to discuss the import of American corn and soybeans under the guise of business talks. But in fact, the real goal of the delegation was to discuss another matter. BJ wanted to build a super high-speed railway directly connecting China and the United States. They have persuaded Russia that this railway will cross the Bering Strait of Russia and take the Arctic route to Alaska. This is one of the conditions for controlled nuclear fusion. After reaching the North American continent, it will extend from Alaska to the most important cities on the east and west coasts of the United States. Impossible. This is too dangerous for the United States. We are equivalent to exposing all our strategic locations to China. Some congressmen jumped up to object. In response to this situation, the Chinese representative simply replied, "This is mutual. Because the cities we open are BJ and Shanghai. From BJ to Washington, directly, from Shanghai to New York." The congressmen who raised objections were shocked by the conditions offered by the Chinese side, and it was a bit difficult to organize their words for a while. In fact, the reason why China put forward this concept with such courage is that the top leaders have determined that the direction of the future is no longer the exploration and colonization of the territory on the ground, but the exploitation and colonization of the vast universe. This is a brand new era, and everyone is standing at the same starting line. Now it depends on who will look to the future first and prepare for the future first. We have given up the ocean before, so we cannot give up the space this time. Otherwise, this group of leaders may be nailed to the pillar of shame forever. Regardless of the considerations, the opinions put forward by China have caused the top leaders of the United States to start closed-door consultations. The US president is actually trying his best to avoid such a thing from happening during his term. He has less than a year left in his term, so why bother with this shit? If it is done well, it will be the credit of the next president, and if it is not done well, it will be his own fault. This is really a dilemma. Speaking of the next president, some people have begun to build momentum for Rogers, and he is also very popular among the people. Steve Rogers is also highly praised internationally, and everyone is looking forward to it. Let's see who will move into the White House this year. Because Captain Rogers' inclination towards the super high-speed railway is very obvious, some people who want to take sides in advance have put forward a middle opinion. That is to roll out the railway network in the United States first. Now the first railway has broken ground in Kansas in January. With a rise of super high-speed railways in the future, the American car culture and highways may slowly decline. This is why Nick said that there will be more and more abandoned towns like this in the future. He couldn't tell whether this was a good thing or a bad thing. The merits and demerits of this matter can only be left to time and future generations to judge. Nick took another sip of wine and murmured, "Maybe I should see how they are talking." Nick Fury said this and walked towards the previous fast food restaurant. But just as he walked to the door, Nick Fury heard a voice that made him feel dead. Black Bolt was drinking Giant Libeo and eating French fries. Kazakazi burped. Damn, Black Bolt burped. Chapter 825, really, if you don't burp when you drink soda, then you've drunk it in vain. Kaz burp. Nick Fury's soul was scared when he heard the burp. He felt that his heart was about to jump out of his throat. Because there might be no one on Earth who understood what Black Bolt's burp meant better than Nick. That meant the coming of a devastating catastrophe. Nick could no longer stop Black Bolt from burping. He heard the crisp burp. Nightcrawler was sitting right opposite Black Bolt. If the power leaked out due to the burp and directly killed Nightcrawler into slag, Nick would have no way to deal with it. He couldn't care about anything else now, anyway. He was not very familiar with Nightcrawler. At most, when he explained the matter to Frank afterwards, he would put the blame on Nightcrawler. In an instant, Nick had already thought of a way to deal with Nightcrawler's aftermath. Black Bolt likes to drink carbonated soda. I warned Nightcrawler that he couldn't take such a risk even if he catered to his preferences. But he always felt that he needed to take a risk. He used his own life as a bet to manage this plan. He was great and worthy of admiration. Well, Nick has already thought of the eulogy. Anyway, he can praise Nightcrawler in any way. Although he is not very familiar with him and does not like Nightcrawler very much. But he is going to die, so he should not be stingy with some words of praise. He should praise him to the sky. Of course, he also has to stick to Nightcrawler's personal wish. It was definitely not him who instigated him to send carbonated drinks to Black Bolt. He just provided the information to Nightcrawler, and the final decision was made by Nightcrawler himself. Nick Fury has already thought about how to get himself out of this matter. And he thought about all this in a very short time. Almost at the moment when Nick Fury heard Black Bolt hiccup, before he did a standard protective posture of side flipping and fell to the ground completely, he had already thought of all this. Nick Fury rolled to the side with a beautiful tiger landing. He wanted to avoid Black Bolt's attack range and protect his black face tightly. He had to wait for the moment when the energy roar stopped. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Nick Fury quietly waited for the moment when the energy roar subsided, and counted the seconds silently in his heart. But as he counted, he found that something seemed to be wrong. 10 seconds had passed. Why didn't anything happen? In the past 10 years of getting along, Nick had also seen the Black Bolt King show his power. It was true that when the Black Bolt King roared, the earth would shake 3 times. Why is it so quiet today? Not even a bit of dust was raised? Just when Nick Fury was wondering, Nightcrawler's voice came from the side. Hey, Chief Nick, are you practicing a certain tactical action? Or something similar? Or have you discovered something and are using the legendary long-lost earth listening technique? No, shouldn't Nightcrawler be dead? Nick Fury turned his head a little puzzled, and then saw Nightcrawler and Black Bolt lying on the window of the restaurant looking at him with interest. I must look stupid now, Nick thought. Nick Fury got up with a dark face, although no one could see it, and dusted off the dust on his body. He walked towards Nightcrawler and Black Bolt with a dark face, still no one could see it, and asked as he walked, "What trick are you playing? Is this trick fun? Let Black Bolt use a generator to synthesize false voice to amuse people." Nick was a little annoyed. He felt that he was fooled. It must not be Black Bolt who hiccuped just now, but he used a voice synthesizer to make false voice. There must be no sound coming out of his mouth. Maybe it was just a coordination. Just like lip syncing at a concert. Lee Ji shrugged in response to Nick Fury's questioning and patted Black Bolt on the shoulder. Black Bolt winked at Lee Ji, and then said to Nick in an electronic synthesized voice, "Did you think I was faking it just now?" Nick exhaled. "Black Bolt, you are already old. Can you please stop playing such childish games? I was almost having a heart attack just now because of you. If you really burped at Nightwalker just now, it would kill him. If he really gets into trouble, I don't know how to explain it to his friends and relatives." Nick said it sincerely, but he didn't know how to explain it to Nightwalker's friends. You must be kidding. He had clearly thought of all kinds of excuses just now. Lee Ji responded to this without comment. "Oh, then thank you for your concern, Director." Black Bolt smiled at Nick, and then drank up the remaining half bottle of Giant Lebeo in his hand in one breath. Tons, tons, tons. After Black Bolt drank all the Giant Lebeo in one breath, he took a breath, and the black one-eyed dragon clearly saw that Black Bolt's larynx began to move. Although Black Cyclops only has one eye, his observation ability is sharper than many people with 2 eyes. This time, the distance was close, and he could keenly observe the movement of Black Bolt's throat muscles. Damn, this is not a joke. Black Bolt is really going to hiccup this time. Nick Fury only had time to yell at Lee Ji, "Lie down." Then he had no time to care about Nightwalker. Because Nick Fury used a beautiful tiger landing and a side roll with a 3,600-degree turn. If it were diving, the difficulty coefficient would definitely be the level of an Olympic gold medal. I hope I can escape this disaster. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Nick felt what some people said, before dying, people will feel that time has passed very, very long, and a few seconds will seem as long as several hours, and they can even recall their entire life in an instant. Nick Fury has this feeling now. He only counted 20 seconds and it really felt as long as 20 seconds. Did he count too fast? In fact, it should have only been 2 seconds, right? Nick Fury thought so while protecting his bald head and dark face. Until he heard a business bang This was the sound of a hooded man trying hard to hold back his laughter and leaning on the windowsill, but in the end, because his shoulders were shaking too much, he couldn't hold on to the windowsill. He fell directly from the restaurant to the outside. Since the sound had been made, the hooded man and the black belly king, this word is correct, could no longer hold back. They pointed in the direction of the black one-eyed dragon doing the tiger drop and laughed loudly, ha 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 ha. It's so rubbing. Ha 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 ha. The black belly king, the word is not wrong, pointed his index finger in the direction of Nick, and his tears flowed down with laughter. Did you take a video just now, Nightcrawler? I want to keep the video as a souvenir. Nick Fury and I have known each other for almost 20 years. He has always been serious. I gave him funny toys for Christmas and he never laughed. I always thought he was a cold man, but I didn't expect his laugh effect is so good. I can laugh for a year because of this video. Ha ha ha. Luigi, who fell to the ground, was too lazy to get up. He just sat on the ground, pounding the ground and holding his stomach and laughing. I took it. Ha ha ha. I need to show this video to Captain Rogers. Let him see that his old superior also has a very humorous side. Nick Fury's face was extremely black now, but no one could see it. He already knew that he must have been fooled by these two guys. I won't talk about Nightwalker. I heard that this guy is always heartless. But how did the mature and steady Black Bolt get involved with him? And even accompany him to perform? The action of pretending to burp just now really looked like the real thing. Even I was fooled. No. Black Bolt really burped just now, but it didn't cause energy leakage. Nick Fury grasped the key point. He looked at Black Bolt and Lee Ji in disbelief, mainly at Lee Ji, and asked Lee Ji loudly, "What did you do to him, Black Bolt?" Lee Ji, who was sitting on the ground, shook his body left and right and shook his shoulders. He said in a very serious tone, Yo, what else? I just let people experience the pleasure of burping. You can't burp carbonated soda? What's the point of drinking soda like this? Lee Ji said seriously, drinking soda without burping is like eating lamb kebabs without cumin. It has no taste. I just help Black Bolt find the joy of life. Nick, huh? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.